Guy from the Lewiston Water Division in the street, and the water was up to his waist. That break this weekend.
Yeah, it's, I mean, we had, I think now we'll be able to drink water.
Yeah, they've cleared it.
They've cleared it, but then they have to clear the whole campus.
Right.
They can't,
Right.
That takes time. Tomorrow we'll be able to.
The March 23rd, 2026 Auburn City Council workshop will be called to order. The first item on tonight's agenda is an executive session pursuant to Title I, MRSA, Section 405, Sub 6F, for discussion of information contained in records maintained or received by a body or agency when access by the general public to those records is prohibited by statute. Is there a motion?
Motion to move.
Moved by
Second.
Councilor Walker, seconded by Councilor Duval. Vote will be by show of hands. All those in favor? The council will be in executive session.
Or he'll see here? Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, you're right at.
Phil, it's replacing both pieces? We're picking up public services, right? 'Cause that's where we ended up, public service. Under the first. Yeah, 5 years. How are you tonight?
Too good, Harry.
Good. So the city council will be back in work session. We're going to pick up with the FY '27 budget. The first item is a continuation of the 5-year CIP review, reminding the council and the public that we left off on the midway down the third page with public services. Mr.
Thank you,
Manager?
Mayor. So I did, Kelsey and I handed you out some updated sheets, your new citywide 5-year capital plan. There was an update on the airport, and I'll cover that when we get into the FY '27 numbers. But so that's just a clarification that was on that. So looking at your public services, we have with us Dan Goyette, who's the director over capital infrastructure, engineering. I'm gonna let Dan kind of walk through these items for you. I'll just highlight, there's been a lot of inquiries regarding what would it cost us to put a traffic light at Auburn Middle School. And so, because we've got a lot of inquiries regarding that, we have an amount for you. However, that amount, and Dan can explain this further, doesn't mean that you can necessarily do that project, because we have requirements within DOT regarding that road. But at least this way you'll know what the cost would be, and then what could take place there, and Dan can kind of highlight that for you. But Dan, do you want to walk through your items? Council, this would be the time to also talk to Dan about the road assessment report that was done, and how he's using that road assessment to determine which streets he'll be recommending. And again, we'll do that in the FY '27, but if you have questions regarding road assessment, this will be when Dan can kind of answer those.
Good evening. I guess I'll start with the traffic signal installation. It's $1 million. That would include design, survey, and the installation of a three-way signal at that intersection with Falcon Drive. It does not mean Maine DOT would even allow us to do so, but if they did, that's about what it would cost to do so. Going from there, the Brickyard Circle slip lane.
Before you move on
Yes.
from that, so just remind me, my recollection from some of the prior engineering sessions is that when it's a road controlled by DOT, they have a specific methodology and a group that does the engineering analysis before they even decide they're going to put in a signal, correct?
We do the analysis, but there's a specific set of criteria. They're called warrants. There are 3 signal warrants. If you meet any of those, you can theoretically put in a signal. You have to petition Maine DOT to do so. But if you don't meet any of those warrants, it's not going to happen.
Right, and there's currently a study going on Court Street that includes that section of Court Street and includes as one of the items that they're looking at the entrance and exit to Falcon Drive.
Correct. Along with the changes that are scheduled or for being prepared for the middle school, the same consultant firm that's looking at the traffic with the result of the changes at the middle school is also doing the study on Court Street. And at the same time, they're determining whether or not that intersection would meet any warrants. So.
Okay, thank you.
Brickyard Circle slip lane. This is the Brickyard Circle housing development that's occurring off Washington Ave. As part of the approval of that project, the city was tasked with building a slip lane on the northbound side of Washington Street, which would allow traffic to come off of the 2-lane section of Washington into a protected left-hand turn and turn directly onto Brickyard Circle. It was part of the, I believe, the TIF agreement and the planning board agreement for that project. Reconstruction. What reconstruction is, that is when you dig, when the street is completely rehabbed, meaning you change the gravel base, you improve the drainage, you typically add curbing, sidewalk. These are more our city streets, our in-town streets that require sidewalk, curbing, new drainage, no open drainage, so this is closed drainage, all this stuff that's underground that you don't see, catch basins, etc. And right now, we've identified, do they have this breakdown, Phil? Do you want me to go into the streets themselves? So I guess this is a good segue into how we determine which streets we are looking to reconstruct. So it's done a number of ways, and there are a number of factors that are involved, one of which is the Pavement Condition Index, or the PCI. This is what StreetScan did for the city last year. If you go onto the city's GIS website, there is a layer that is called StreetScan data. And if you click on that layer and turn it on, you'll see every segment of road is a different color, or sometimes they're the same color, red being bad, green being good. And what happens is when StreetScan goes out, same thing with sidewalks, we use the LiDAR system, which is basically a bunch of lasers that shoot the road, determine deformity, cracking, condition, and it gets assigned a number. And from 0 to 100, 100 being a road that was perfect, which doesn't exist, and 0 being a road that is impassable. And so the way the website shows it and the program is done, it's segments. So every intersection to intersection. It's not entire road lengths that are assigned a number. It's segment by segment. So you could have section of Court Street that's a 20 and a section of Court Street that's 100. So we start with that. Look, where's all the red? And then we meet with the different utility companies, be it sewer, water, gas. Where are you guys doing main work this year? Are you replacing a water line here? Are you doing a gas main here? And then we also look at, okay, what's going on in the planning office in terms of development? Which streets see 10 cars a day and which streets see 200 cars a day versus 20,000 cars a day? And that all gets looked at to determine, okay, where's our biggest bang for the buck? Because 10 years ago, we used to be able to do a reconstruction project for about $3 million a mile. So a mile of road costs about $3 million. Today, that's anywhere from $5 to $6 million. So our dollars have essentially dropped in half. And everything has gone up. Granite curb, you'll see on the outskirts of towns, we tend to use concrete curb now. Granite curb has tripled in price. It used to be cheap to do granite curb. It is no longer cheap to do granite curb. It's gone from $25 a foot to $75 a foot. So everything is extremely expensive when it comes to a road reconstruction. So reconstruction is a top to bottom. Right now, we have identified Harris, Forest, Prospect, and Fairmont Avenue. Court Street to the end of each of those streets. So it's that little section of roads. We typically try to stay in one area and get all of it done at once so that not every 3 years the neighborhood is disrupted by construction work. So we try to do section by section. And then a reclamation project, which is the next line, is where we go in and grind up the existing pavement with the existing gravel surface underneath. Usually it's 6 inches of gravel, 4 inches of pavement, or 6 inches of pavement. It's like a 1-to-1. You grind that up, regrade it, pave it. Typically it's open drainage. These are our North Auburn roads, our Hatch roads, out-of-town streets, and reconstruct them to a lesser degree. We're not digging out the existing gravel base. It's usually in good enough condition where we can just grind it all up and put a new surface on it. We've identified Howe Street, Eastman Lane, and Old Portland Road at this time for that type of treatment. Major drainage pays for our MS4 program, which is our municipal separated storm sewer system. So this is all your catch basins, and the carrying pipes for those, as well as our culverts, our Stetson Road. When we did that box culvert last year, that money came out of this account. We typically try to camera 1 to 2 miles of storm sewer system every year to determine its condition. And then based on that, we can determine which sections are failing, which sections are in good shape. And we do that prior to determining which reconstruction streets we do. So there's there's actually multiple large granite box culverts that run under the city, under houses, under streets, under everything. And they've been there for 100 years. They're just granite, stacked. Sometimes it's mortared, sometimes it's not, and it conveys a lot of water. So we've TV'd that and determined which sections we need to repair, which sections are okay, and the money to do that comes out of this account. MDOT match, there are different programs within MDOT now. There's one called the Municipal Partnership Initiative, there's the Planning Partnership Initiative, there's the Urban Partnership Initiative, and all of these programs are 50-50 split. You can only do these on state roads. So anywhere we can take advantage of 50% state money and 50% city money, we do so. There's a finite pot of money that the state has every year to do this work. You apply, and we've been very successful. There's only been 1 year in the past, I think 12 years, we haven't gotten a project this way. They just increased the match amount to $625,000. It used to be $500,000. So that money is used for that, as well as any state and local. It used to be called with ATRC, our LAP programs, locally administered projects. That was an 80-20 split, or 80-10-10, 10% city, 10% state, 80% federal. Maine DOT has taken over that program. We no longer are applying for that, and they approach us with projects that have been recommended by ATRC, but the Maine DOT administers that money now. Next on the list is resurfacing. That's exactly what it sounds like. Maybe there's a mill involved, which means you grind off the first 2 inches of pavement, reshape the road, and just pave it. Typically we do this where sidewalks are in good condition, drainage is in good condition, but the wearing surface is starting to delaminate or show potholes or things that are easily repaired. This buys us 7 to 10 years. Typically is the road we try to identify for this type of work. Right now for resurfacing, We have Hatch Road, Shepley Street, Great Falls Plaza, South Main Street, Summer Street Extension, South Main Street, maybe that might get delayed based on what goes on with the CDS money the city received for the extension of sewer and water lines. If that section of South Main Street is in there, we're obviously not going to pave it this year so that we can dig it up next year. So it's an active live list. Next, retaining walls. Last year we hired, or 2 years ago, we hired a consulting firm to peruse the entire city and identify every city-owned retaining wall, its condition, and what type of remedy or work could be needed on that retaining wall to make it last another 10 to 20 years. A list was generated, very similar to the PCI list. This 35,000, I forget the name of the street. It's a very small, what is it? Atwood Street. There's a small retaining wall at the end of Atwood Street, which is a street you've probably never driven. It parallels Minot Avenue, or comes perpendicular to Minot Avenue. It's a dead end. There's a small retaining wall at the end, and this will repair that retaining wall. If you have questions about retaining walls, because we get this a lot of the very visible deteriorating retaining walls are not city-owned. So if you have questions, you get questions for constituents, please give me a call, and I can help you peruse that and figure out exactly which retaining walls we own and which ones we don't, so that the public is aware that one's not ours, that one is ours type thing. Lake Road, that one's done. Sidewalk repairs. This dollar amount is to repair the sidewalk from where 186 Main Street reconstructed, that sidewalk in front of the new building right here on Main Street, that to the corner at Gritty's. And I believe this is the price for brick. Is that correct? Yes. To replace just that side of the street in brick. So from Court Street to 186 Main Street. There are different costs. We can, if we want to do it in concrete, it drops down to almost 400,000. If you just want to pave it, it's like 200,000. So there are different, or if you just want to leave it, it's obviously free. Downtown walkability and UPI grant match. This is the Urban Partnership Initiative that I spoke about it earlier, but this is for the match for the downtown parking walkability study that was done 2 or 3 years ago to make improvements there. And a small master plan study that's also to do the area of, I believe it's Court Street South.
So I had Dan come up just so we could spend a little bit more time on this. We'll get into other pieces when we talk about the FY27 actual, what's being recommended. But I think this gives you a good overview. Dan builds this out over the years. You'll see as this carries out over the multi-year requests. We'll never be caught up on road repair. It's one word, and we're not budgeting each year what it would cost for us to be caught up in 5 years. It's just, we're constantly pushing them off. We're doing the ones that are most critical. But one thing that's been, I think, beneficial over the last probably 10 years or so, we've been very consistent on what we have been putting in for road reconstruction. And I think it's also what we have capacity to do within our engineering department. And so there's been times when there's been other projects that they've taken on, but yet that's really expanded, not just the projects that we do that they have to pay attention to, but it's also projects that the state might be doing that they also need to be on site, watching, confirming what's taking place on with those projects. And so we try to find that right balance with what we have for staffing, what we have for funding, and making sure that we continue to chip away at this. We know this is a big issue for all of you. You hear from your constituents often regarding road conditions. Unfortunately, when we talk about budget, it's right during the spring and right when pothole season begins. And so you're going to have a lot more conversations on that. we'll cover a lot of that when we talk with PW on what they do regarding road maintenance, which is very different than what Dan does. I'm going to have Dan stay up here just because there's some other facility pieces that you might have some questions about. But we also have, within public services, there's also planning and permitting. We carry an amount, about $100,000 just on dangerous buildings. We continually have issues with buildings that might be, that are not secure, that we need to secure, or we need to demo as well. And so this is the cost that we try to carry into that line item for buildings that we just might need to demo, and then we work through that with a bank that might be old owner, or through a foreclosure process. We also have the comp plan program. You'll see in year 2, 3, 4, we're moving that back up to what we normally have budgeted, and that's the $400,000. Because we're coming in towards the end of the comp plan program, this is just covering the cost for what we're doing with the comp plan, but it's not the projects. Year 2 is when you'll start seeing that $400,000, so we can start working towards some of the projects that the comp plan will have identified. And then file scanning, that's a consistent, what we're trying to do is put a lot of our files, scan them so we can eliminate some of our storage space that we have with files, but it also makes it accessible when we're going back and doing a lot of research. Transportation items that are on here, this has to do with, we often will have requests for changes of signage, or speed tables, or flashing lights at a crosswalk. This is the line items that we would pull from those. LATC is our Lewis and Auburn Transit Committee. We allocate $50,000 each year. That money goes into an account that builds for when LATC actually has to purchase a bus. And so there's a match with that bus. Primarily that's paid for under the federal government, but there is a local match. And so Lewiston also allocates the $50,000 annually, so that way we're building that account up when those buses need to be purchased. Right now, I don't believe we need to purchase any buses until 2030. So we're in a good place right now with the buses that LATC has. Freight intermodal, this is our intermodal facility on Lewiston Junction Road. We are seeing more activity there with businesses that are using that. We know that there's some benefit regarding enhancing some of the equipment that's out there, scales, the gate, access. So that's what this, over the next 2 years, what that might look like. What you might see next year is as that year comes up and we get more information, or we identify additional partners, might see that change in year 3 and 4, because what we've determined is we need a year to do a study, then we need a year for implementation, or to bring on some additional funding, so it's not all bonded. Public Works, I'll ask Scott to come up, and whoever he has with him. When you look at Public Works, we did this a few years ago. We started breaking out Public Works, who oversees a great deal of not just our facilities, but all of our rolling stock and open spaces, and the large capital equipment that we own, and what we do to maintain those. There's always, every year you'll see that first year has a higher amount because there's those immediate needs. What does not get funded in that year 1, we push off for the following year. And then we constantly have the directors prioritize their lists, so we have priorities that are on your sheets, and those will, that way we can know what's the priority, which ones should we be focusing on, which ones might be a multi-year, and so as we work through that, we make sure that we get that information to you, and we work that out. But you'll see in year 1 under road maintenance equipment, it's a $1.2 million request. That has to do with replacing several different pieces of equipment. I'll let Scott kind of walk us through that Scott, just the highlights, because when we get to FY '27 and you're sitting up here, we'll go over a lot of what we're asking.
Okay. So a lot of what you see in here is that we always try to look for a piece of equipment that might take some of the manual labor out or make our jobs easier. So some of those asks are for that. One of the things on here I'll mention is the mastic machine. We're in pothole season. When we go out and patch right now, patch doesn't stay, especially when it snows every other day and it rains. Patch is temporary. That's, we're hoping that in mid-April we can go to hot top, which will actually stay. But this mastic machine, we have rented one a couple times. If you look outside of City Hall here or a couple places, we use it. It's made to do like the top inch, half an inch to an inch. We'll fill it in with either stone or coal patch. And then this liquid material goes over the top and it seals the hole so water can't get back into it. We put some stuff out on Lower Turner 2 years ago and it's still there. So by buying this machine, we can save on, some of the major holes that keep coming back. We'll use this machine instead. It's not cheap to buy the stuff for it, but when you patch it 7 or 8 times, 10 times, 15 times throughout the year, we're hoping that we can cover that. So that's one of the things. Obviously, our sidewalk tractors, those are getting tired. Those get a lot of miles on them between plowing and mowing. So we need to start replacing one of those every other year or something. And the biggest ask this year is the sweeper. It takes our 3 sweepers to sweep. We start sometime, well, hopefully you should be going now, but it's going to be pushed out to April. And it takes till June, sometimes the 1st of July to sweep. We also have to meet the compliance of our MS4. We have to sweep the streets at least once. Now we're having to do it twice a year to meet the obligations for DEP. So that is a big ask. That is number 1 priority this year for sure in the road maintenance equipment. And then vehicle list, just quick like on that. I know Phil said he's going to touch on it, but our vehicle list right now, we have 6 that can lift a wheeler at Public Works. That's all we can lift with those. If we add 4 more, they all tie together, so we could lift another truck and be more efficient in the garage. So that's the ask for that. That's the road maintenance equipment.
Thanks, Scott. When you look at recreation, open space maintenance, one thing that's been requested, probably, I don't know how many different surveys we've done in the community, but there's always a request for a dog park. We carry it in the CIP. We apply for grant funding if one becomes available. But we always are, when we're looking at properties, we're always considering, could this be a potential space for that? What would this look like here? So we carry it in the CIP. It just has not got to a point where we funded it. I think it'll be really important for us to continue seeking some grant funding regarding those. If we were to move in that, if it becomes a priority for the council. Playground equipment, we have several playgrounds in the community. We began replacing many of those over the last few years, started using ARPA funds, and now this is coming back into our CIP for future replacements of equipment. The field repair, when you see field repair, Upper Pettingill, this has to do with our ball fields that are at the Hasty Recreation Campus. And then park repair and furniture. Scott's team has done a great job of going and looking and assessing all of our equipment as we've been working on asset management. We've been changing out a lot of our park benches as they become damaged, need to be replaced. We're changing them out with a consistent park bench. So that way there we have all the storage of parts and replacement pieces for that, so it's consistent throughout the city. And they've done a good job of identifying one that requires less maintenance and a little more durable for us as a community as well. And so they consistently have some that they remove that need to be replaced. And there's times when you might see the bench is gone, it's just we didn't have the funding left to replace it, but it might be on next year's replacement schedule. And then Festival Plaza, we know that there's some upgrades that needs to take place there. We had worked through this. We had a Festival Plaza study not that long ago that did not get funded, but there are some priorities that we need to work on to ensure safety measures. And so that's what's being included here. When you look at electrical improvements, going down through your list here, there's some light pole replacements, and then school zone flashers. We've been able to work through many of those through other projects that we've had. We've been able to tie those in. This is identifying some that needs further replacements. The city vehicle fleet vehicles. Scott, how many rolling stock do we have? Oh, I thought you guys would have this. Right? We have.
It's over 100.
Hundreds of equipment that we are maintaining or replacing, ensuring that we have moved all of our city fleet is now all being managed and operated through Public Works. It's all on a maintenance schedule. They are the ones that actually make the recommendations for what vehicles need to be replaced based on what are we spending on those vehicles for maintenance? When does it become that tipping point where it's time to move that vehicle off or to change its purpose? And we do that quite frequently. We have vehicles that are within the police department that they're at that end of life for the police department. However, there's still life in it for another department. And so we'll transfer that vehicle to another department to be able to use because it does not need to be used in an emergency response or the mileage that we're putting on it's pretty low. And so you'll see the list of equipment that we have, vehicles that have been identified. One thing that we're constantly looking at is lease compared to own. There's some value to leased vehicles, especially if there's a decent deal that's being offered. We'll evaluate that. We'll put an amount in on what we need for the vehicle, but when it comes time to execute that purchase, we'll take a look and we'll see what's the best opportunity for the city. But the amount is what we put in there, whether or not we'll be replacing or whether or not we'll do a lease for those. And so we are seeing that. We've had some communities. Scott's been involved in a lot of conversations. There's a lot of communities that they are moving completely towards lease. We see probably there's a hybrid need there for us, not necessarily all of our vehicles, which would include all our police vehicles, everything else. But we see there's certain vehicles that make sense. Kelsey will work through that as we move through that to make sure that we are staying within what the requirements are within some of these terms and what that looks like for us. So, yeah.
On the lease vehicles, what's the financial accounting on that? Do we have to restrict fund balance for the total amount of the lease, even though it's in the year, or is it treated like an operating expense?
It's treated like an operating expense.
Okay.
Yeah, those are ones where you'll see in the columns that I have on the FY27, we'll have some, we've been shifting a lot of that out of bonding and we've been moving it into operating. So that would be included in that. Go ahead.
For audit standards, we do keep track of the total lease cost, but that's a separate portion, not part of our budgetary. It's just something that we keep track of for, like I said, audit standards.
Great, thank you.
Facilities and energy is really we're still only in, I think, year 2 of really experiencing the benefit that that we currently have with taking over all facilities in the city of Auburn, including school facilities. And so we have a facilities manager. We're working through identifying through our asset management, through our equipment replacements for HVAC systems, for various needs as far as the envelope of the building, what needs to be taking place. We probably have not done a great job with some of our buildings as far as say brick pointing and some of the work that needs to be done to make sure that we're maintaining our buildings well. And so that is now all part of our facilities focus. And you'll see on here, there's a few items regarding Auburn Hall. We are, believe it or not, we're 22 years in this building already. So it might have felt like it was just yesterday, but it was 22 years ago. So there's some things that need to be replaced. We have not replaced the carpets in this building. There's some things we have not done. And so we want to make sure we're maintaining this well. that this building will last for many, many years. So we have some items in here related to Auburn Hall. Also, Engine 5, what you'll see in here is quite a few items on this list for Engine 5, but Engine 5 is one when we did the public safety needs study. Engine 5 was one that we looked at that eventually, that's the remaining fire station that has not had upgrades to that facility as far as some of the safety needs that we know within the facility regarding separation of living quarters and equipment. We've had that conversation for councils that have been on here for a while, but for new counselors, when you're bringing in, you're taking off your equipment from a fire, keeping that separate from your living quarters is really essential regarding the carcinogens that are on these pieces of equipment that then gets into the air. So this is a small station. If you haven't been there, we'll give you a tour so you can take a look at this station. So that's, even though we have some of those items on here, you'll see that one of the line items is regarding, we probably need to do a study of what improvements needs to happen at Engine 5. It's on our list of items that we know we'll need to tackle. We do not need a full station replacement, but we do need to make some improvements within the station. And Auburn Public Library is another area that our facilities manager has evaluated, gone through and taken a look. We've had a good assessment of that facility, identifying some of the needs that are within the public library. Recreation Department, this is major equipment replacement. We have just really all things as it pertains to, it might be scoreboards within our fields. It could be pieces of equipment that need to be replaced within a dugouts or the press box at the fields. So that's what this line item's for. But it's also part of some of our sports programs. So we have a replacement schedule for, say, football equipment for the youth football team. It wouldn't be bonded, but it's within the capital because a lot of times there are larger items. We would move that to an operating cost, but we list it out here as, because it does vary on the different types of replacements that we have for that line item. And then education at the bottom, we have communications with the school on projects that they have. We actually have the superintendent coming to your next meeting on the 30th. She'll be talking about the Auburn Middle School project, and she'll do a presentation to you on that. So that's the 5-year plan. Questions regarding, it's a large document. One thing that you'll receive, I just asked Kelsey if you had gotten the individual sheets because I saw a couple blank faces when I mentioned the sheets. So she's going to provide you the sheets. What you'll have is the projects that are being recommended for FY27. We have a lot of the sheets, but it's a lot of material. So the recommended items for FY27, you'll get individual sheets for those. Those will have a priority list on them. They'll have a description of what the project is. Usually there's a photo that's attached, so you have a better idea of what's being considered in that FY27. So we'll get you that. We're going to have more conversations regarding the FY27 request in the future, but I'll give some highlights after we're done with the CIP plan. Just for new counselors, what will take place is that, you'll see for the adoption of the plan itself, when you approve the plan, you're not approving to spend the money that's in here. You're just approving that this is, you're going to adopt this plan, that this is the plan that's been presented, and any changes that you have, we'll work on getting those corrected or added to. But that's currently where we're at with the plan there.
The adoption of the plan will be at the meeting on the 30th,
The adoption of the plan will be at the meeting on the,
6th.
I think it's the second meeting in April, but we'll confirm. Yeah, it might be the 6th, yeah.
6th.
Because I think I have had to, by charter, this has to be presented to you before March 30th. So that's why we're making sure we get that tonight, but then you'll have time in your budget deliberations to talk about the FY27 items.
Questions about the 5-year plan from the council? Yes, Council
A
Platt.
quick question, thank you. I may be jumping to the wrong document, and if this isn't the right time for this question, just tell me, but erroneously, I'd been following along in the FY26, FY27 page as opposed to the 5-year plan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to move to that next.
Okay, we are. Okay, I'm just having some trouble understanding the first 2 columns in orange.
Yeah,
The
that's going to
relationship
be the
between them.
next item, and that will be, those 2 first pages in the CIP tab in your book will be the recommended amounts, and the manager is going to cover those next.
Yep.
Questions about the 5-year plan? No? Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Cowan.
Dan, you talked, I just would appreciate I want to fill in just my notes. You talked about the cost per mile of reconstruction. What's generally the mile cost for resurfacing or reclamation, or do you not have, I mean, if you have that off the top of your head, I'm just curious.
I don't have it off the top of my head, but I can tell you resurfacing is probably 20%, 25%. Reclamation's probably 50 to 60. But I can get those firm numbers for you. But just to give you a sense of the
amount.
scale, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. And I know you've mentioned in the past, I think because of that resurfacing coupled with the lower cost, but also we kind of get that 7 to 10 years of extension.
If it's the right road, yes.
Is there, because it's the right road, I mean, so the complexities, I'm trying to sense whether, is there any advantage to potentially fronting more money towards resurfacing? Would that get you ahead of the game in terms of preventing degradation overall or not?
Yes and no. I know that's not a good answer, but what we do is we look at roads that have been rebuilt in the past 10 to 20 years, and we'll go back and we'll drive those roads, look at the PCI, look at the traffic data, and go look and see what kind of deformities, what kind of cracking is occurring. Does it make sense is it a candidate for resurfacing? Because sometimes they just fall apart. Your reclamation wasn't a good choice 15 years ago, and you should have reconstructed it because the base is, we've encountered roads where you've got 2 inches of gravel, 2 inches of pavement, and then 2 inches of pavement, 2 inches of gravel, and 18 inches of clay. And you shouldn't have spent the money reclaiming that 2 inches of gravel and the 2 inches of pavement before, because you've got nothing underneath. It's just going to pump and heave. And that's sort of what the instance of North River Road was for most of that northern section. It was just on clay. No matter what you did, unless you did some real work to it, you're not going to get it to last another. In 5 years, it's going to look the same type thing.
Other questions? Councilor Platt.
Quick follow-up to Tim's question. I understand that, we're not going to fix all our roads. At the rate we're spending, the problems are occurring faster than we can fix them. I understand that. But with regard to reconstruction, I'm 40 years old. In my lifetime, will we ever stop having to reconstruct roads, or is that a
No.
forever thing as well?
To get on a 10-year cycle where we would just be in the resurfacing reclamation, we'd have to go 3 to 4 times our currently allocated budget for 10 years. So I'm going to say no.
A great statistic to have. Thank you.
One final, so with the reconstruction, generally, how many years do you get out of that?
Oh, we're looking for 20 plus.
Other question? No, we move on to the FY27 recommendation.
I'll go over the breakdown of the columns, so we'll have that. But while I'm doing that, I'll ask we'll start with the police chief, fire chief, and IT. If you all can come up, we'll hit those. And Dan, stay here for engineering. When you take a look at the FY27 only, you're going to see the requested amount. Some of that is regarding the requested amount to the line item that you see there, but it might have been, what we've also done is we've collapsed. So if you take a look at the airport, their requested line item request for FY27, rather than putting all those items in here, was a total of 800 and some odd thousand. And so that's what the requested amount is, and then for the FY '27 year. And then you'll see where we've broken this out with what we're recommending for bonding, what we'll recommend to come out of our operating account. If there's a grant funding that we believe that is being considered or may become available, you'll see the item in the grant column. And then EMS reserve, this is EMS revenue that we set aside for all of our EMS purchases. And then TIF funding is, we do have funding within our TIF account. If there's a project within TIF, we'll recommend that that comes out of the TIF account, knowing that it all might not be there right away, but the TIF account works that it's being paid back over time. And so you might see an item in there, and I think Brickyard Circle would be the one that we currently have listed within the TIF account. So under the airport, this is the one that I made a change on your 5-year
Phil,
plan.
can I interrupt you real quick?
Yeah.
So understanding that second column that says bond,
Yes.
is that your recommendation?
Just my
It's not the department, the department's recommendation is the request, and the bonded amount is the manager's proposal? Okay.
Yeah, I've sat down with Dennis and Kelsey. We've kind of worked through what do we believe as the department directors talked about their priorities. We've circled back with them. If you only had this amount, what would that look like? And then we really, our goal was to try to, as the directive was by the council, keep all things status quo. And so the amount, we did that with CIP as well, so that way that your debt service that's being required for the interest for the FY '27 bond remains the same amount as well. So that was our goal with building this. So just so you have a framework on where we're at. Go ahead, Kelsey.
And we had previously been asked, what's the difference between whether we bond projects or we put things into operating capital? So while the acquisition of capital assets can be recorded in an operating fund, like the general fund, if it's paid for through current revenues, that's the difference. Major, long-term, or multi-year projects are typically accounted for in a separate fund, which is where we bond projects. So anything that's an operating, happening one single year, potentially could continue each year, but it's considered an operating amount. That's what goes into that operating capital, so that's that operating column. Anything beyond that, larger projects, like I said, major long-term or major multi-year, those are the ones that end up in the bond column. So that's the difference between those.
So the airport is the one that we made a change on the FY '27. There were some items that were in FY '26 that carried over in that FY '27 column that we had originally handed out. This is the revised one. The CDS, we had 2 years worth of CDS matching that needed to be done. We completed it last year, not last year and this year. So that had already been done. So that was removed. And then, so what you see now for the $150,000 request, as I shared when we first went over this at the last week's meeting, airport is, when we talk about local share, that local share is split between the city of Auburn and the city of Lewiston. So I did check with the city of Lewiston on where they're currently at with bond or capital funding. They also have, they work their capital a little differently than ours. They might have a fund balance column that they use for some of their capital projects. And so, so we check to see what do they currently have either allocated that they can reallocate that were already set aside for some projects. When the airport over, since 2022, we've had different projects that have been funded over the years. And so there's some money that can be reallocated. So they would have about $150,000. So what we're recommending is the project within the FY '27 for pavement for the parking lot, the entrance to the airport, that was listed out at $600,000. We would recommend doing about half of that project. And so it'd be $300,000, which is split 150 between the two cities. So that's $150,000 that you have there. We'll provide you some more documentation on that. So you'll have, I've asked Jonathan to really frame out what that 50% of that project will look like. So we'll get you that update. I just talked to him today on that. So we'll have that available for you as we move forward. Under the clerk's recommendation here for record restoration, we did move this also in your, in the city clerk's budget. And so what we're recommending now is that from what was in her budget, what under the manager's request, I have about half of that, 25,000 that's in her operating budget. But then we have the operating capital. I added an additional 20,000 in the operating capital, just so that we could try to keep the record restoration moving forward, getting as much done as we can. So we split that up. One, the goal is that in the future, you'll just see it in the clerk's operating budget recommendations that go, but we really needed to get a few more things caught up on that. So then hopefully next year, you'll just see $25,000 that's in the record restoration within her regular line item budget requests. Under finance, the reval, we are wrapping up some of our costs regarding reval, so the $250,000 is part of the contract that we signed with the reval company to complete the revaluation for the city. Under fire, you come up. I thought Bob was not here. So fire chief is here. We have the requested amounts for the fire, the apparatus reconditioning. Bob, I don't know if you want to share what that's the $315,000.
Yeah, sure. So this really pertains to our larger apparatus, the engines and the tower trucks. This is a project for engine 5, which is our 2008. And basically the cost of new trucks has just exploded. The last truck we bought, the last engine we bought, 2020, 2021, was about $623,000. That same truck right now would be $1.4 million. And so our approach is trying to get to a point where when we buy a new truck, in the 10-year window, we put it through a reconditioning. This reconditioning, we just did one 2 years ago. This reconditioning is $315,000 to try to get 5 more years out of it. And that is really economical if we can extend the life of that over the cost of those exploding new truck costs.
Is 5 years the death of that vehicle, or would you recondition it again?
No, I don't think we haven't done a second reconditioning. What our real capital model looks like is 10 years on the initial purchase and what we call frontline status, running calls every day. We recondition it and we move it to a reserve piece to extend that life. And we always need some reserve pieces, right? Because we've got stuff going out for service and maintenance and those types of things, and it keeps us operational. And then what that does is it allows us on a cycle, the one off cycle, if you will, is the tower truck. It just doesn't seem, it's not economical for us to have 2 aerials in the city. And so that plays a little bit different scheme. But in general, what we're looking to do is to buy new, run it for 10 years, move into the reserve status, recondition them, make sure that they're reliable for another 5. Now, it's not 5 and out, right? If the thing's still treating us really well, we're going to continue it in service in that reserve status for sure. The real risk here is if we didn't do a reconditioning, its dependability in that year 10 through 15, we've seen becomes more in question. More downtime, less ready to go when we need it, those types of things. So it's really trying to get bang for our buck. When you think about getting an initial 10 years on what would be a $1.3 million purchase, getting another 5 for $315,000 is some economy to it.
Chief, quick question on that. Related to the costs, I know a couple years ago you were showing us the astronomical increase in the costs. Have you seen that those astronomical prices have stabilized at that astronomical, or are they still increasing?
No, we really haven't seen them flatten out. And I think it's as much a global economy as everything. Cost of steel, tariffs, import fees. There's actually even been congressional hearings about this with regard to reduced competitiveness in the fleet and the fire apparatus market, big conglomerates that are owning 3 or 4 manufacturers, and whether or not that's creating a lack of competition. There's a lot going on in that market. And I don't have the answers to those, but I know that from a pricing standpoint, I don't think we've seen it flatten.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
So Bob, Chief had put in a PPE turnout gear replacement and was looking to phase this. The First phase is this 175,000. You'll see that it's listed under a grant. There was an opportunity kind of at the 11th hour to, when the CDS grants were being submitted, to send a larger CDS request regarding public safety equipment. And so, so we'll have the 175 just kind of footnoted here under a grant. Our goal would be that we'd actually be able to do 100% of that if awarded those funds. But Chief, I don't know if you want to cover anything regarding the PPE. Why this is
That's something we've talked about for a couple of years. It's kind of the industry standard now for folks to have 2 sets of PPE. So when they come back from a fire, it's soiled, it's covered in carcinogens and contaminants. They've got the ability to wash and launder that. We're putting laundering facilities into our new stations. These are specialized equipment to extract the carcinogens out of that. But they've got the opportunity to get that clean and have a set so they can keep responding the rest of that shift or the rest of that night. We see a little bit of a reluctance of our folks to wash that equipment right away because they may have to put it on soaking wet, in the middle of February for the next call, right? So we're delaying that. So the standard in the industry is to try to get 2 sets into everybody. So you've always got one dry and one that's being laundered. And then by the time you come back in on your next day, things are back in service. And so that's what we're moving to. That's one of our health and wellness initiatives that we've been trying to reach.
Chief, you want to talk about the 3 items for EMS?
Sure. Very similar to the discussion we just had on the engines. What we do with ambulances, we get about a 9 or a 10-year life out of an ambulance, and what typically goes first is the chassis, which would be the truck component of the ambulance. The patient care, we call the patient box, has more life in it. So what we do is what's called the remount. We'll send it to a service department that actually disconnects and lifts that patient care compartment off of the chassis. We put a new chassis, the mechanicals, engines, transmissions, wheels, brakes, suspension, those types of things. A new chassis goes under it. They hook everything back up electronically so it all works. And the economy of that is about half the cost of a whole new ambulance at this point. Again, so what we're trying to do is economize on those, use good components. It'll be a really interesting discussion, Councilor Platts, to your question earlier, about whether or not those boxes will be in good enough shape to do a second remount on them. And to be perfectly honest with you, we haven't gone through that cycle, so we don't know. But what we do know is we got 9+, we're going on 10 years with the initial purchase of our first ambulances. We'll do a remount on those. We're expecting, because it's a new chassis, we'll get another 9 or 10. And somewhere in that 7-year window, we're going to be evaluating, is this a candidate for another remount, or is it going to be a whole new ambulance purchase? And so those are the paths that we're on. And then the other 2 components with regard to EMS, again, these are all funded through the EMS Capital Reserve, which is some money that comes out of EMS revenues that are generated and set aside for these capital purchases, so we don't have to continue to bond EMS. The other 2 are really common on-schedule items that you'll see pretty consistently. Cardiac monitors. We've got a rotating stock of those, if we will, a fleet of 7 or 8 of those cardiac monitors that we just replace. It's about 1 a year. We're going to end up in a few years at a cycle where they do a major technology upgrade, and we'll probably we've got in the capital plan to try to do 3 at once, so that at least my frontline apparatus all have the same cardiac monitors, because it is a major technology upgrade. But those are pretty regular. And then the same thing, the stretcher replacements, we're replacing those stretchers when we do new ambulances or remounts, right? And so this lines up that when we do a new remount, a new mechanical stretcher, lifting stretcher gets done at the same time.
Thanks,
Any
Chief.
questions?
All right.
Mr. Manager, could you speak to where those funds are coming from, what the EMS RES column?
Yes,
first-
so that's what the chief was just talking about. That's the EMS reserve account.
Reserve, I'm
So,
sorry. I
Yeah,
missed
no,
that.
that's fine. So, yeah, so that way there, we're not needing to bond those. They're more on a annual maintenance replacement on a lot of that equipment. All right. IT and Norway Savings Bank Arena in Ingersoll, we covered a bit when Mark was here regarding Norway and Ingersoll, and we covered some of it when we were covering the first phase of the 5-year plan. But Jill's here if you have questions regarding the fiber and security cameras. We can talk more about those if you've got questions regarding these items.
I was just curious if the security cameras are replacements or new locations.
It's a mixture of both. So we have quite a few that are at their 10-year end of life and need to get replaced, and then we have a handful of new ones that we're putting in. Yep.
Joe, question in terms of, I know this is a standing item, so a couple questions. One, can you remind me how far along we are in terms of this project, in terms of the fiber and security
In terms of the
expansion?
fiber, we haven't started tackling a lot of the city buildings. We've just been doing a lot of the new construction buildings. So our first lease line that we'll be replacing will be Engine 2 this year, and then we'll continue to pick down the list. We have 14 total lines. And we continue to do new projects like Kitty Hawk in the airport and a lot of those different ones. So we have not tackled a lot of the project, so probably 10%.
Okay, thanks. And my recollection is these are the items I've seen in this process for IT. Are there other things that you might think is equal or more of an important priority that we just haven't, because this is an ongoing process? Would there be anything else that you'd want us to consider in replace of for a year here or there?
So I think I can meet with Manager Kroll and discuss some of those options once I get some funding. So one of the things I haven't done is get a lot of the funding for additional software security options, and I can do that and then meet and we can come back to you with some answers.
Is that there? All right. Next section is regarding the police department. You'll see all four requests from the PD are listed on the sheet. However, you'll see the firearm training storage container not funded. We believe that we'll have, when we make the transition into the new public safety building, we have some storage containers that are currently being used for storage. When the new facility goes online, we'll be able to, we potentially will have a couple containers, or at least one, that we could move to the firearms location, use that there rather than purchasing one. So that's not being funded in this FY27. We know it'll take a little while. The goal is that we might need to do a little repair in that trailer. That's something that we'll work with PW on, make sure it's safe, accessible, and we'll do that. The other items you'll see are broken out, Chief, starting off with the, I think we talked a little bit about this when you did the CIP, but your budget, but you want to talk about the cruiser and body camera system replacement?
Certainly, thank you. We are currently in a 5-year contract with our provider for body cameras and cruiser cameras. They're all one company, and both the body cameras and the cruiser cameras are interoperable with each other. It's all one major system. And part of this 5-year contract, we're currently going through an equipment refresh right now, where we're getting all new body cameras and cruiser cameras. And the body cameras have been implemented, and now we're waiting for the company to come out to install the new cruiser cameras as well. So this is a 5-year contract that's financed for 5 years. And the body camera and cruiser cameras, they are an integral part of our technology now. We wouldn't be able to survive without them at the end of the day. Given all of the requests that we have and the pressures for prosecuting successful cases, we're constantly being asked for body cam videos and cruiser cam videos from all of our major cases. So it is an integral part of everything that we do.
So Chief, before you move on from that, so the $152,000, it's a 5-year contract. That's for purchase and maintenance?
Purchase, maintenance, and annual licensing and storage as well. We have cloud storage for the video through the company.
And so we're paying them $152,000 up front for the 5-year project?
No, we're paying them $150,000 a year for 5 years. So the overall cost is about just over $600,000. And this is year 2. This is the second year payment of that for $152,000.
And looking at the 5-year plan, it's 120 listed in that. And is that for the last 3 years?
Yeah.
Think.
So it's not even every year?
No, it's 152. That's an error. It is supposed to say 152,000 for each year over the next 5 years.
Okay, great, thank you.
Oh, okay, thanks.
And then firearms training equipment. We go through firearms training a couple times a year, And this equipment is to enhance our officers with their training, with their remedial training, low-light drills, movement drills that they do. Typically, we use the Androscoggin Fish and Game Club for our qualifications. They are no longer allowing us to use their still targets, so we have to purchase our own to be able to continue our training. That's why that's being requested this year.
That's being requested on the operating capital.
And then the final project is our automatic external defibrillators. Currently, our defibrillators are beyond their end of life. I think we're down to 5 that are left currently operating. And we'd like to have an AED in every marked cruiser that we have, because typically the officers are very close to a scene where it's required, and we've had a lot of success stories with those AEDs, and they are essential for life safety.
Thanks, Chief. The engineering items are exactly as we just, Dan went through these point by point with you, other than the traffic signal installation not being suggested for funding, and then the Brickyard Circle slip lane being funded under TIF. All the other items are being recommended to move forward as presented.
And so that TIF's about, what, 2 years old? On Brickyard Circle, so is the annual revenue from the TIF enough to cover the debt service, or we're gonna be running a deficit on the TIF until we catch up?
That's correct. You'll run a deficit. Yep. All right, I think that's it for this crew. I'd ask Dan to stay. You carry over, Dan. And then Eric Cousins to come up. And Donna to come up from Recreation. We've highlighted these 2 projects, or 3 projects actually should be carried over, regarding planning and permitting. I don't know if you have further questions for Eric Cousins, who's our Executive Director of our Public Services. This is regarding the junkyard cleanups. Got questions regarding what we have outstanding. Eric can answer that, as well as dangerous buildings, what's in the queue, comp plan, and then file scanning is just not a project that we chose to move forward with at this time. Questions for Eric? I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I had a question about the dangerous buildings and junkyard cleanups. It seems like this is something we talk about every year. Is there a reason this doesn't migrate into the line item budget?
I would say that we're slowly moving things to operating capital rather than piling everything into the budget in 1 year. We began this 2 years ago, kind of building this operating capital amount. Because we were keeping the operating capital status quo, we did not increase that amount this year, although that was the original plan. So we're kind of slowly moving forward with doing so.
That makes sense. But the intent for items like this over time would be to get them into the budget? Okay, great.
Yeah, these are consistent, but we also, Eric works at trying to recover some of the costs on some of these, especially dangerous buildings. We might be we might be paying to have it removed, but then are we able to recover some of those costs? But every one of these properties has different variables on what's the current situation, how is it owned. Eric, I don't know what we have in the queue, or if there's anything that we're working on.
Yeah, there's really 2 parts. The dangerous buildings, where we try to make sure we have some funding available if we encounter a dangerous building that we don't know about today during the next fiscal year. Whether there's a fire or a building gets damaged in some way and needs to be addressed. And then the way that we've been working it on the junkyards, if we have a couple of good years in a row where we don't have a lot of dangerous building expenses, then I'll try to package what's remaining from those 2 years like we're doing right now and clean up one of the illegal junkyards that the city has battled for years. Right now we're working on 250 Hackett Road. That property will be cleaned up here in the next couple of weeks, but it's really taking all of 2 years ago's funding and a little bit of this current year's funding to do that. We will resell that property. We're also looking at the prior junkyard that we cleaned up at 145 Eastman Lane. trying to repurpose that soon for a affordable housing project. And then where we don't have a specific use that the city wants to see the property put to, then we would sell it and try to recover as much as we can of the expenses that it took to get rid of the hazard or the junkyard that wouldn't have cleaned itself up.
Just for clarification, this line for the dangerous building is, for lack of a better term, the routine ones we get every year that come before the council. This would not cover some of the larger buildings that the council's talked about before that they're in various different stages, but so some of these large dangerous building projects would come before the council separately because this type of funding would definitely not cover that, correct?
That's correct. They would have to. We couldn't practically reserve enough money for the largest buildings that could become dangerous in a given year. And we would also look at other funding sources. There may be brownfields, and we're monitoring the conditions at some of the buildings that are vacant and could become dangerous, and try to plan ahead for those things.
Any other questions? Moving on for transportation, if you have any, I covered these when we went over the 5-year plan, but Dan's here to answer any of those questions specifically. Some of them are placeholders, some of them are needs that come up throughout the year of a high-risk area that needs to be addressed. There's funding that'll be available for that. The freight intermodal modernization, gatehouse, security, that's not being recommended at this point. We are seeking some additional partnerships with that, so I'm not recommending anything in this fiscal year. Any questions on those?
Neighborhood safety, would you explain that one a little bit?
Yeah. Dan,
So,
you gotta bring your mic back over.
So this would be when we do our neighborhood meetings for reconstruction projects or rehab projects or reclamation, sometimes you get constituents who come forward who would like to see something specific happen in their neighborhood or their area that's not part of the reconstruction project or the reclamation project or whatever it so be. And we try to address those that way with this money. I'm trying to think, like the Harris Street rapid flash beacon, the rapid flash beacon we put up at on Lake Street. I can't remember the turn to go down to Hasty, whatever that is. And so projects like that.
Right. Moving on, Scott, why don't you come back up? And then Donna from Rec come up.
Donna's here.
Donna's here.
It's a blind spot for me. I can't quite see who's at the end of the table. All right, Public Works, you'll see for the road maintenance equipment, as Scott kind of reviewed, there was $1.2 million in requests. We're moving forward with $755,000 of those items. And then rec open spaces, again, not all the projects being recommended, and then electrical improvements, just some of those items, but Scott can talk about some of those, and I'll pull up the actual breakdown on some of those if you have specific questions.
So yes, I know I talked a little bit about in the 5-year. So some of the ones that I talked about, hoping to move forward with, one of them is replacing a sidewalk tractor. That cost is replacing with some of the attachments as well. Most of the time we can buy just a tractor and keep using the attachments over, but at times they wear out as well. So it's time to buy a new set. And we are looking at different models of sidewalk tractors. We've gone with trackless for a long time. They come out of Canada, and there is a tariff on those. The last time I checked, it was quite a significant amount. If they didn't have one in stock, it would be a significant amount added to that. So we are looking at a different one. It's being tried in several other municipalities, and some have had it all winter, so we're gonna be reaching out. Matter of fact, we have a demo with it tomorrow. May not be able to do any snow with it, but it can have a sweeper or whatever, so we're definitely gonna let the guys try that tomorrow. So that's one of the things. Mastic machine, that is again for patching. I really think that's the biggest bang for our buck to use that. It will definitely help us in patching some of these holes and not have to go back to do them. The sweeper is also in that. Right now, we currently have a sweeper parked. It would have cost a lot of money. The frame was rotted out where it lifts the body up on it, so we parked it. To get our sweeping operations, we may need to rent one for a month or so. Hopefully we can get one of these. And out of that is the vehicle lifts as well. That was to make the shop more efficient. Like I said, we have a pit that we can work over, but that limits us to just changing oil and stuff. If we have another set of lifts in there, we can lift the truck up, the tires get rotated, and all the other maintenance can be done to it. So, really important. That's the road maintenance equipment. You want me to?
Thanks, Scott. So yeah, under the recreation open space maintenance, the playground replacement, this is for Raymond Park. The field repair is, as I mentioned, just repairs that are necessary at, down at Hasty. And so those are the only two items that are being recommended to move forward within recreation open maintenance. And then electrical improvements, there was $48,000 that was recommended for the, replace the school zone flashers. And so that's being proposed moving forward. Questions on those three categories?
Just could you repeat the two projects for rec?
I'm sorry?
What are the two projects you're recommending? The fields
That
and,
would be playground replacement and field repair.
thank you.
And the playground equipment, it's Raymond Park in New Auburn. All right, under city fleet vehicles, Scott, do you want to cover the?
Sure. So some of the city fleet vehicles, the smaller ones, like Phil said, he mentioned the lease, we'll be looking at that. So that amount would replace some of our supervisor pickups. It would replace some of the city hall vehicles here as well. The engineering Jeeps, we got one last year, but there's still a couple to go. So that would replace some of those. And then the other is plow trucks. Last year, we did not get any in the CIP. We have, like I talked about in the tour, we have 8 2014 Internationals, plus we have a 10-yard truck that all the same year. Those are starting to nickel and dime us to death. I did pull some reports. One of the Internationals, I think it was one of the first ones that we got in that batch. We're looking at, in the last 3 years, we've spent $48,000 on repairs on it. And that is like EGR coolers, it's the turbos, that truck has a particulate filter, so for the exhaust. And those things are constantly causing us issues, and they're very expensive to repair. It's supposed to go through where the truck is parked, it's called a regen. It takes like 30 minutes. They don't always do it, and you don't know it until it's too late. And there's a warning, and it's not something we can fix in-house. Has to go out. So I think every one of them have been pretty close to having that happen to them. The other plow truck is a 10-yard. That truck is a 2012. That truck has been a lemon since we bought it. We've had more issues with it. We ended up putting a motor in it in 2021 or 2, and it cost $50,000 to put a motor in it, and it's still giving us problems. We're still having coolant issues. It has leaks or whatever, so it's time to part with it. It's just nickel and dime us to death. We spent a lot of money on that one as well. So. I think that was it in that.
Thanks, Scott.
Yep.
Then under facilities, we're putting a hold on anything regarding Auburn Hall reconfiguration. We still have time once the PD relocates, but there'll be enough happening in this next year with LA 911 moving into Auburn Hall. That's factored separately, so would not be part of this configuration here. That's a placeholder for now. We're not sure exactly what the needs will be when those changes happen. And then Engine 5 is another one that we've placed on hold. It's another one that we're considering for a potential, some CDS funding to address that. And so we'll see where we land on that. But even if we did, Engine 5 would be a project that we would move on till after we complete the public safety facility. So we just have somewhere around $75 million worth of projects that we're working through. Many of those are through CDS grant funding projects, plus the public safety building. So timing and being able to create some bandwidth within staff on some of these projects are really essential. So we'll address them if the funding becomes available and there's an opportunity. We won't miss that opportunity. But if there's something that we can then put on our timeline, then we're going to move it off so that we make sure we can handle all the necessary work that's included in that. And then the only item, the other item, I guess there's a couple that we've moved forward with here, is the sand and salt building at 67 Kitty Hawk. Scott, I think we want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I know when I did my presentation a few weeks ago, we have a capacity issue, and obviously the future is at 67 Kitty Hawk, having something down on that end of town. So it's gearing up for that. The building that we would propose is big enough to put our salt quota in, so we're not waiting for trucks to deliver it to us. And then we would haul it from there up and fill Grace Lawn when we needed it. So it's looking at the future and, getting it so we can have another place to load out of and not run out of salt.
So when you say the salt order, you can order this off peak season, get the whole year's supply, and put it in this building.
Mm-hmm. Plus, we'll be able to put sand in it as well, so we'll have sand for down there for the few roads that do get sand.
Scott, do you have a general cost comparison? So you have a building, salt shed, Grace Lawn. Could you build a smaller one down further south and split your pre-purchase?
So we can only put 1,000 ton at Grace Lawn, so we would put 1,000 ton in that, and the rest would go down in the other shed. And then
Gotcha.
when Grace Lawn got low, we would haul it up.
Good. All right. The other item would be the 121 Mill Street. Glenn, you want to cover that?
As we did our project at 121 Mill Street, we had done an initial assessment of the rooftop units, and that assessment wasn't quite as good as we would have liked. We've had 2 units that have failed, so we've been getting by this winter with not as much heat as we would like, but those need to be replaced this year.
We've allocated that $35,000 under operating. You'll see that line item. And then the remaining item is regarding recreation, major equipment. Again, it was of that request, $24,190 in operating. Donna, you want to speak to how we'll chip away at some of our operating needs?
Yeah, so like Phil mentioned, the major repairs could be every 2 years we need to replace the helmets. They're on a schedule, and football helmets are ranging from $45 to $70 per helmet. And when we have 90 kids playing football, it does get a little costly. Same thing with, like, if our floor scrubbers were to go down, it's an emergency repair. Those are about $10,000, $12,000. Scoreboards, dugouts, weather-related fixes. We had flooding, and a lot of our dugouts were out of the ground, so we had to replace them. Basketball hoops, if they were to shatter, which does happen, we would need to replace those. And then anything kitchen-related, replacing any of our senior center fridges, freezers, items like that.
So that's our complete list. So as you see on your CIP sheet, down at the totals, You'll see the bond item request, total is at 11,776,000, and then 540,000 in operating. That's the same amount that we had budgeted last year out of operating. And then 175 that we mentioned regarding the fire turnout gear. Hopefully we'll be able to, like I said, successfully secure not just that, but enough to do 100% of the project. And then the EMS reserve at 431,000, and then the 350 out of the TIF account. Questions? I know it's a lot of information at you. We will provide you the detail sheets, so you'll have more as you go back through and try to say what were they talking about there. It'll have more detail for you.
I have a question about the operating column. Is that out of the manager's proposed budget, or is that in addition to?
No, it's within the manager's.
It's within the
proposed.
budget.
It's
Okay.
already built in.
Great.
Any other questions from the council on the CIP? Council?
I'm sorry, I did have one
That's
more
fine.
for Scott. You mentioned one of your plow trucks you pumped like 50 grand into over the last 3 years. What's the cost of a truck like that?
So, when we reach out for the CIP numbers, they give us, without a trade. And sometimes we do get a pretty good value in the trade, but we have one right now that is about done and ready. It's a single axle, and it's 270,000.
That's
That's a small one.
complete with the plows or just for the vehicle?
That's everything. That's the plow, tank, the wing, the bodies. Yep.
So it's a 270, and an equivalent of that, you've had to repair almost 50 grand.
Correct. That's in that bigger truck. This is going to replace a smaller truck. That's a 2008 that's parked right now. We haven't been able to run that truck. It would have been a spare, but we haven't run it all winter.
Any other questions? So we'll move on, leave the CIP, we'll move back to the general discussions with the departments, and next up is Public Works.
So as we had talked about with the other departments, and we'll continue doing this as we review the requests that we have, just as a reminder, none of these budgets have new programs, new services. This is maintaining what we currently have within these departments. What's also included within Public Works is facilities and energy line item and solid waste. So you have several items here. We already covered solid waste in the previous workshop. I'd given you a pretty detailed listing of the breakdown regarding recycling, collection, and then disposal costs. So this is just an opportunity for you to ask Scott questions regarding just his general operating requests for the Public Works Department.
Any questions on Public Work? Yeah, Council Flynn.
Another question for me. Scott, what would you say over the last year have been your biggest wins as far as efficiency and finding new ways to be effective spending less money?
Well, we've had the salt brine for a long time. That's obviously been a big savings. We were spending, it was $1.61 a gallon. We were spending $40,000 to $50,000 a year on salt brine, calcium. And then making salt brine, we're making it for 15 cents a gallon. So it's been a big savings there. You times that out by the many years, we bought a hot top box, so we have 2 of them. So that's been a savings for us to be able to do jobs with that. And we're always trying to look for more, but with the cost of everything, everything's expensive.
Council Collins.
Scott, this jumps back to CIP a little bit, but the lifts you've mentioned, I'm thinking forward to staff and staff time and efficiencies there. Are there pieces of work, mechanical work, that has had to go out to be done because you don't have sufficient lifts to service it in-house?
Yes, definitely. And I think of fire trucks mostly, and some of that is specialized anyway, but we haven't had our own equipment being in the winter season has been in there, and we haven't been able to do fire trucks, so we've had to send those out. Some of the bigger repairs on these trucks are more computerized every time you go. Sometimes it's hard to diagnose it. So we've had to send out stuff like that. We try to buy computer systems that hook in, but some of them the dealers won't let us take it. It's a way to get them to bring the truck to the dealer. So yes, there has been some stuff that's cost us money to send out.
Other question?
You got questions regarding road, snow management and ice management? This is the time to ask that question. What's our road priorities, winter, how they address some of those critical needs regarding priorities of our roads? But this would be a great time to have that conversation with Scott.
I wouldn't mind a refresher on that, because I know there's different zonings and the details are fuzzy in my head.
So we do have 4 priorities. Obviously, number 1 being Center Street, Minot Ave. We recycle that every couple hours. Then we go to priority 2. That's every 2 to 4 hours, where we would cycle that area. And then priority 3 goes to 4 to 6 hours. And I know we had a question about Beach Hill. It came up in an email or whatever, but that road is every 4 to 6 hours. And then we have our priority 4s that sometimes it's 6 to 8 hours before we get around it. If it's a big storm, it's definitely the 8 hours. So we try to do the best we can on that. I know the question on Beach Hill for this weekend is that we cycled it every 4 hours. What people got to understand in the sticky, wet snow is that a half an hour after we leave, it doesn't look like we've done anything to it. Just because, especially shaded areas and stuff like that where it sticks. And, it scrapes off good when we come back through, but it just takes us a while to get around it.
Can you talk about how the priorities are set for each of those areas?
Well, they've been set for a long time, and it's based on the traffic and, and things like that. So I'd have to research some of that because I didn't make those priorities. It was a long time ago. But it's based on the traffic and, what it is for houses, if it's a dead end or things like that. It's based on the street.
One of the challenges that Scott has is you have 2 previous public work directors also sitting at the table, who probably were part of setting some of those priorities, and so it's never easy for a director to have other directors, past directors there. But
I think one thing is that we try to meet the priorities the best we can, but you got to understand that our trucks that we have on the road, there are no spare drivers. There are no spare trucks. If a truck goes down, that driver jumps in that spare truck. So if we have a truck go down, if it gets stuck, which has happened a lot, especially in this last storm because the shoulders are soft, they're turning around and they miss just a little bit, they get stuck. We don't have another truck to cover that. All these trucks have routes. So that was another, complaint is it took us a while to get to a dead end road, which is a priority 4. But one driver had to go home. A truck broke down, so we didn't get to that street actually until this morning. People have to understand that we just don't have a bunch of people around that we can just stick in another truck and send over there. We do our best.
one of the benefits, just to build on Councilor Butler's request, and her constituent had asked her a question regarding this, is that, when I forward that off to Scott, he's able to bring up the GPS data. He knows exactly what time the truck went around that loop. He knows their schedule. And then he was able to say, okay, there was this gap here. Why was that gap? Well, that truck was off the road. And then he was able to show when it came back and did the plow. So it's really beneficial to have that technology as well. Sorry.
I would say it was very beneficial to be able to repeat that technology and share that out with the constituents. I think one of the concerns of that area is really falling within the intersection at the bottom of Beach Hill. And Scott, I don't know if this is yours, but I'm wondering if there's any update or any timeline around the intersection reworking.
Regarding the signal?
Yeah. That project is being funded and managed by Maine DOT. They agreed to expedite that project, and they've been working through it as quickly as they can. The design is completed. It's out to bid now. I think the bid opening is within the next couple of weeks, 2 weeks from now, and it's slated for construction this summer. So they're moving as quickly as they can, and they were able to design the fix to that intersection without requiring right-of-way, which would have delayed it by over a year. So they really tried to work within the footprint that they had to deliver the safety project as quickly as they can. So it should be up and running this summer.
Scott, one more for you. Sidewalks. Could you talk about the prioritization and the operational planning around how you try to tackle what sidewalks you can and can't do, what the challenges are?
Yep. Number one is the school areas. So when we go out after a storm, and again, we don't have enough drivers to cover all the sidewalk tractors until the storm is done. We have 1 or 2 out maybe during first shift to do the downtown. But as soon as it's done snowing, the guys jump in the sidewalk tractors and they go around and they hit all the school areas first. And then we move out from there for the rest of and we don't do all sidewalks in town. We have set ones that we do, and I can certainly get you that plan. But there are some that we might only do one side of the road. It's there, they can jump across. We have a lot of narrow ones that we can't get through with the sidewalk tractors. And if it's on a weekend, obviously the church areas and stuff, we try to do that on a Sunday to make sure that those get open. But they work around the clock until they're done. I will give an update. I mean, obviously, as soft as the ground is, even those, they've wrecked some lawns, unfortunately, because it is very hard to tell sometimes. These twisty, turny sidewalks, they go around poles and everything. We did not go on to the secondaries. We did all the school runs and the primaries today, and we opted not to go on them because it just makes a mess, and we have to do lots of lawn repair after. So,
Councilor Walker.
Can you tell me how many trucks you have on each one of the 4 different categories?
how many trucks we have on each? There's 21 trucks out, 21 big trucks, and 2 of those are 1 tons that do fire stations. No, there's 23 total. 2 of those are fire stations and parking lots and stuff. And all other 21 are out on those other streets. Again, some of those priority 4s, they're all stacked up. They're dead ends, they're cul-de-sacs. So the plow trucks come out, they're working on those. Some of them have a salt run, and they do secondaries as well. So they'll do a salt run, and then once they get that done, they go off and plow all the rest of them. So sometimes we will pull them off, the priority 3s and 4s to do their salt run, but they're right back at it. So all the trucks have a run throughout the city.
If you look at the snow and ice control plan, it actually breaks it out, and some trucks will do a 1, 2, 3, 4. Some
Correct.
just do 1s and 2s. Some just do 3s and 4s. So it depends on which area that each plow truck handles.
That is.
Can you tell me about how many calls you had from not doing South Auburn yesterday in that storm?
I don't think we got any, Councilor Walker.
And I'd like to let you know that it was about 6 hours before you actually got to the outer south of Auburn, and you didn't get any complaints. But I have seen times when there's a snowstorm, it's only got this much snow, and you've gone all the way through South Auburn, Pownell Road, Jordan School Road, South Witham Road, and we've got a ½ an inch of snow out there. How can the difference be so far apart when you had 4, 5, 6 inches of snow yesterday, wet, sloppy, nasty to try to drive through, but yet you made sure that it was almost exactly 6 hours from the time the storm started to the first truck that hit the Pownell Road?
I can tell you that truck in the South Auburn, most of those roads are priority 3 and 4 roads. And if we are a driver shortage, that run, it usually has to wait. And we did not have a driver in on one of those shifts. So one of those shifts, when the driver came in for the next shift is when it got plowed. Because we had drivers sick and we had a couple out. One had to leave for a family emergency. So when we're down drivers, we don't have extras. And that's one reason it didn't get done till later.
The reason I'm bringing it up, it's not because you didn't do it, but it's because I think that's the priority for that area. And I think that's the way it should be most of the time. When I see a truck out there driving around and there's no snow to really be pushing around out there, to me, that driver should still be in town doing something that maybe needs to be done. But when he's out there, within the first 2 hours of snow hitting the ground. We see it even in town. There are hundreds of people that ask that question all the time. Why is that guy plowing South Main Street when the plow just came down? And that's why I asked, how many do you have in different routes? Because you'll have one smaller one, and I don't know the difference between the smaller one other than the 1 ton. They don't plow the South Main Street. But you'll have the bigger one time, smaller one another time. They're only within 15 minutes of each other on the same piece of road plowing snow. Now, I don't know if that's the way you schedule them to do it, or if they happen to be coming at the same time. But when you got 2 people pretty near on the same exact road, plowing it within 15 minutes of each other, that is, I guess, a mess up in schedule or something. I don't know. I don't believe it's
So
right.
to explain that just a little bit, say for instance on South Main Street, that route is split, so there's a truck on each side of South Main Street, all those other streets. So sometimes when they're making loops, they're coming out onto a road that's already been plowed. So you're gonna see that once in a while. You know, and there's also a truck that goes out to, out Pownell Road. You know, he starts like after Vickery Road or whatever, and, you know, he'll plow that. So sometimes you're gonna see that, but if there's snow on the road, I know I've said this a million times, the plow is the most important piece on that truck. If we're plowing that snow that's on the road off, we're not using material to get it off. So, again, that's why we use the plows. We scrape, scrape, scrape. That is how we're taught, and if you're putting material down on stuff that's got snow all over it, you're wasting material.
Other questions? Councilor Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Given the type of storms we have and all the calls that could potentially happen for medical emergencies, how do you handle the ambulance runs?
Well, the supervisors do have radios in their truck, so they can hear. You know, for the most part, I think our trucks are out there, they keep the roads. If there's something major, you know, Comm Center will more than likely call us, and we can dispatch a truck there as soon as we can. We'll have to pull one sometimes maybe, or whatever, but we don't run into that very much, but we definitely would do that if we had to.
Given that we have so many senior places, and I know of one that comes to mind that it seems like almost every day in the last month we've had to have medical response there to save somebody's life. And so, I mean, I want to make sure our responders are safe when they drive, and because they're trying to get somewhere really fast to save a life. And I know you guys work hard, but I just don't know if there was any time during the storms where fire response said, I don't think so.
Yeah, I've not heard of any issues, and I know they do have a pickup there, so if it's a real bad storm, I know they might put personnel on to run that vehicle and maybe plow ahead in case we can't get there. But I think for the most part, we try to get around as quick as we can, and we get a call, we would be there for them if we had to.
Thank you.
Other questions on Public Works? Not seeing any. We can move on to General Government.
Great. So I'll ask some of this crew to move away, and we'll have next crew. We spend a lot of time talking about police, fire, and public works. Those 3 departments make up over 50% of your municipal operating budget. That's why we spend a decent amount of time there. The other departments that are coming up, general government, I'm going to ask them just to be available to answer questions. What I'll do is I'll work through the master list of departments. If you've got questions regarding for that director, they'll be at the table. Might need to add another chair. Yeah. Thanks, Dennis.
Let's take a 5-minute recess
That'd be great.
while we're changing here to give people a
Yeah, we've been going on
bio
for a while.
break.
Great.
I'll sit down and eat.
Could have been fun if it was just Everyone healthy at home? Is everyone healthy at home? We got one with a fever today. She seems to be doing okay. Yeah, mess up their sleep.
How are you, sir? Doing okay? Okay. Okay. We're all right. I think. Sounds great. Okay, there you go. Next year.
I think so. He handed me his name tag and said,
Let him leave on it.
Your operator.
Good? Did you? Yeah. Also, within 1 month.
Mr. Manager?
All right, thank you, Mayor, Council. We'll start off with your budget. So the Mayor and Council has a budget. If you did not know that, yeah, the staff is ready to ask you questions about your budget. No. So the items within your budget include the stipends that the Mayor, Council, and as well as the Planning Board. That's included within the Mayor, Council budget. And then we have the city audit comes out of your budget, and as well as our dues requirements for AvCog and some of the coalitions that we're part of. That's the mayor's budget in general, mayor's and council budget. You have some training money that's in there, as well as supplies that you need within your office. Moving on till I hear something, I'm just going to keep scrolling through these. Under the city manager's budget, you have, I won't go through all the different staff positions unless you have different questions regarding it, but for the most part, what you'll see in each one of these department line items, you're going to see salaries, you're going to see what we call general professional line item that has to do with training or within the city manager's budget. All the legal costs for the city are within the city manager's budget, so we have one line item. We spend about $140,000 a year in legal fees.
Are you looking under tab 2, the new pages you gave us?
Not in your,
Yeah, it would be
Have
in
to.
the handout that the finance director provided that has the Munis label in the upper right-hand corner.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
yeah.
I thought I was in the right place, and then I'm like, wait, different order.
Yeah, we do have, so I'm pulling this from a Munis report that I'm looking at, but I'll make sure that I'm trying to stay on the same line items that you have. Next should be our communications department. Our director, Liz Allen's here to answer questions you have regarding this. Also within communications is engagement, which means all the special events. So, if you have any questions for Miss Allen, she's here. Again, as a reminder, what's being presented in the budget are the same programs, events that were funded in the previous year. Councilor Cowan.
Yeah, could you remind me of all of those? Because I doubt I'm remembering all of the events.
Oops, push top. We have 3 signature events each year, starting with New Year's Auburn. In the spring, we have the Auburn Lobster Festival, and in the fall, we have the Auburn Blues and Brews Festival. This also funds some smaller events like Fright Festival on Halloween, and we do help the police department just a bit with their National Night Out event. So some smaller community-focused events, as well as those 3 kind of big-ticket items. And then we do have some sponsor revenues that help offset the cost of that line. We set a goal of budgeted $25,000 this past year and hit $34,000. So we were able to offset that quite a bit this year.
Thanks.
All right. Moving forward, we have the clerk's budget. Finance director's here to answer questions there. Clerk's department comes in under the finance division. All voting elements will come under the clerk's item, as well as the paid stipends for warden clerks, and sometimes we have to have extra staffing leading up to voting because we need coverage, and then we need someone to also do the processing that takes place regarding absentee ballots and all that's included in there. The clerk's office also maintains Municode, which is our ordinances, our online ordinances, so she manages that. The cost for that is including within her budget. Our clerks are part of licensing within the state of Maine, so they need to maintain their certification. So there's costs that's included within their line items related to their certifications. All right. Finance department. Separate from the clerk. Clerk's always had its own separate line item, but over the years, we've merged finance with the assessing department, so that's included within this line item. And finance director here to answer any questions you might have regarding her request.
Can you speak to the senior tax reimbursement? I know we had budgeted $150,000. There was some, we got very close to that, but I don't know that we spent all, and how is that being handled?
You're referring to the current tax year and what was paid out because that program was funded? So based on the number of applicants and their qualifying amounts, the amount that was paid out was $125,913. So any remaining funds in that goes to the fund balance.
Okay. All right, moving forward. We have HR, so we have our HR director here. We have with seasonal employees, part-time employees, and full-time employees. We have over 300 employees that HR manages, either our onboarding, selection, recruitment efforts, as well as maintaining, a big part of what HR does is maintaining all of the various benefit programs that they manage for the 7 different unions that we manage, as well as she also provides HR services for some of our combined programs like the airport. And certainly is available for some of our other partners like LA 911 if there's further questions regarding HR. We're available for them as well. So questions for Chris on HR?
I just had one question on the increase in the salary line. Is that an unfilled position that became filled? Was it a position that moved from one area to the other?
Yeah, it's a position that moved from one area to another. As we had a vacancy, we took a look at that position, tried to determine what made more sense, where our needs are, and having somebody that's really focused on safety and some of our recruitment efforts was really a priority for us, for consistency with our workers' comp investigations, with ensuring that all the required labor training is completed across all departments. So this person now facilitates all of those functions. If you recall, there was also work that we did last year's budget regarding a position that was in the police department. And so we took a look at that and said, okay, is there areas that we could look at to ensure that this is covered across the board? And so this position isn't as a replacement from the position that was in the police department. This position was from another vacancy that we had within the city. And rather than filling that vacancy, this one was created.
Just a quick follow-up to that. This question probably pertains to all departments, but is the paid family medical leave 0.5%? I think, is it 0.5% that we, or whatever it is? Is that in the budget for 2027?
Yes, yes. Yeah, and we share that cost with employees. We were able to get a different arrangement with that, but we are splitting the cost. So it's not the 0.5%, but I think it's around 0.4.
Phil, can you remind me the increase in insurance premiums in general?
About 10.3%. And then we have to also budget for the potential, because it's half a year, we also have to budget for the potential increase for the 6 months after that.
Yep, okay. We'll move on. Planning and Code Department. This is again a category that has 2 departments, but these 2 departments are all part of the public services collapse that we've done over the years with different departments. So Mr. Cousins is here. He oversees this division. So it's planning, code, engineering, as well as economic development and transportation. So, but we'll start with Planning and Code Department. Questions here. Eric is here to answer these questions for you. We're currently making good progress with a replacement for the planning director. We hope to be able to announce that soon. So that's one of the vacancies that we currently have that we are in desperate need to fill. One of the changes that we did in this department was that we moved the electrical code position was really our city electrician, which was Charlie DeAngelis when he retired. We moved that into Public Works, so it's no longer in this department.
Or is the insurance premium line, is that general liability insurance for our buildings? Am I in the wrong department?
What page number's at the bottom of that?
I
that
might
you're
be in the
looking
wrong department, sorry.
I say insurance premium should be under finance.
It is under finance.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We are currently looking at the bottom of page 8 and moving forward.
But do you have questions regarding the insurance?
I just wasn't sure if that what kind of policies those were referring to.
It's our property and casualty coverage.
Yeah.
So we're a member of the Maine Municipal Association, and so we're covered through MMA on any of our property and liability issues. They also have legal coverage for us, so some of those items that might present themselves, we don't necessarily go out to our legal, which is Brandon Isaacson. We'll go straight through MMA. Next category is public services. Again, this is Eric. This is the other sections, some of the other sections that he has within his overview. This is really himself, as well as the Economic Development Department and the director of the airport.
That begins on page 10.
You'll see that within this category. However, then it's offset through revenue that we receive through the airport, but the expense is in this line, is in the expense category. No other questions here. We'll move to business and community development. Director Holmes is here to answer any questions. This is a department that has a mixture of, there's some costs that are in the city budget, but then there's an offset to some of these items as it results to CDBG funds and the payment for some of the individuals that are providing those services. So
GA is in this budget as well?
Yeah,
and,
GA administration, yeah, so the actual GA services are in a different category.
Glenn, could you just give the council an update on the CBDG, is it general assistance or CBDG where we get reimbursed 75%?
GA.
GA, could you just give us an update on where we're at GA compared to like last year? I think we're down, but that means reimbursement's down as well. Could you explain that to us?
Sure. What we've seen is over the last few months, general assistance, actually, I mean, back in the fall, it really had started dropped some. Through the winter, it's been held down. It's coming back up a little bit this spring. The clientele has shifted dramatically, but all in all, we've projected a decrease in this budget for a lot of those areas that we'd have to be paying for. But yes, we spend less, we also receive less. But on a percentage basis, it's dollar for dollar. I mean, as we drop it down. But right now, we believe that what we're seeing right now will probably hold pretty steady. There doesn't seem to be as large of an influx of other people coming to the state right now. But yeah, we're cautiously optimistic.
There's a bill on the appropriations table to modify the reimbursement from 70 to 75%. That's not booked in the budget. We're not going to know that it actually happens here probably for another month.
But Glenn, overall, it's a very good news, not for it to be going down, because we're on the hook for 30 cents out of every dollar that goes out the city. We only get reimbursed for a portion of what we have to pay.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, anytime we're spending less, it's always good. I mean, and part of that decrease has not only come from lower numbers of people coming in, but it's the staff's ability now at 120 Mill Street to refer those people out to other organizations that are providing services, that instead of having to have them go, 3 miles down the road, it's go down the hall 2 doors and let's see if we can help you there, and making those options available. So that's helped a lot.
And if you're looking in your book, Health and Social Services, that org number is 1032, so it's on page 33 is where that budget starts. So we're on page 11. This one we're talking about is on page 33. They're based on department numbers, and this department org number is 1032. Glenn's department org number is 1013. So if you look on the far left there, that 4-digit number is determining the department you're referring to.
As an example, we're budgeting, last year we budgeted $700,000 to pay rent, and we're only budgeting $550,000 this year. So we've seen a dramatic drop.
And does that also, I know in the past you've had to hire or increase your staff time are you able to do more and just give you ability for innovation that you didn't have before?
So what we've been able to do is maintain the same size staff and pay them differently. So people who were being paid with tax dollars, now they're doing some work in other programs for the CDBG programs, and they were more like part-time that we would have had to bring in. So we've been able to balance that out. And as you've seen over the last few years, if those people have been here, my department will add 2 or 3 people, and then all of a sudden we reduce by 2 or 3 people. It really depends on what we have for federal funding that's available at the time and what we can use for programming and what the needs are that we need to do. Right now, we're doing a lot of rental assistance, where we help people with their money to get into the property security deposit, and then we'll pay for up to a certain dollar amount over the next 6 months, but they have to be working a plan to be able to get back on their feet themselves. And that's been pretty successful. We partner with Preble Street for that, and we're paying one of their staff members to do the actual boots on the ground. We're doing the administrative side.
Yeah, I think Glenn makes a good point regarding the employee count. So if you looked at that employee count sheet, you'll see that there are 2 positions that were reduced as a result of the lead grant. So facilities and energy engineering is probably your next item. Engineering, as I mentioned before, it's a small team. There's 3 people. They not only are they managing or through an engineer designing some of our road reconstructions, but they also manage what takes place regarding state projects that are happening. And so we have one employee that's actually out, especially come spring when these projects are starting. They're out connecting with those contractors that are out doing that road reconstruction. So and they're on site quite frequently. Eric can answer any additional questions. Dan had to leave, but we can certainly cover anything within his line item. Facilities on page 14. This is fairly new for us within the last couple of years of really identifying the facilities function. We have one employee within the facilities and energy. That employee is paid for 50% by the school department for the work that he does to manage all of our facilities. Again, this includes all the city facilities, school, library. He's the one that's out evaluating, assessing those buildings. Also included within this category, in years past, all the departments had their own water sewer line item, their own natural gas line item, their own electricity line item. We've been able to merge this all into facilities and energy. In doing that, we were able to reduce the budget considerably because everybody, does not want to go under in their line items. So there'd be a little bit of a cushion in there in case there was a spike in use or a spike in a cost that we weren't anticipating. By merging this all down, and we experienced the savings last year, over the last 2 years really, as we've merged this all into one line item, we were able to actually reduce what we were budgeting for all those categories. And this is also the operating capital is within this section. Yeah, so fringe and workers' comp, again, fringe covers all the fringe benefits for all the employees are in under this category. So you will not see health insurance costs within any of the departments. They're all located here. So we have everything from the workers' comp, what we transfer out to our workers' comp account. We have a pretty standard amount that we have there to fund that. Occasionally we'll determine, Chris will work with finance, will determine whether or not we need to increase what we're allocating. In the last couple years, the council, we had anticipating some worker comp payouts, and so we had actually allocated some funds from the fund balance to ensure that we had funding for those larger payouts that we were anticipating. And then we also have our health insurance, someone that already asked regarding the increase there, FICA, Medicare, Maine State Retirement, our cafeteria plans, unemployment costs, salary reserve, we've discussed this some, that we have a salary reserve account so that when we're negotiating contracts, we have an amount in there. That's the amount we're able to pull from. When those contracts are negotiated, sometimes they're for the year that's upcoming, and so we don't have that built into the departments. We pull that amount from the salary reserves. And then I think that's it for those categories, if there's any questions. All right, fire department. Yeah, so emergency reserve, this is percentage from what our overall appropriations are. So it's not just within the city, it's city and school and any other funds that we have to appropriate. This is a percentage off from that. This is a moving number, right? So we'll put a placeholder in, but as you work on the budget, if that budget reduces, that line item would reduce. So to ensure that we're meeting the charter requirements.
This is a statutorily required percentage.
Yeah, our charter requires us to have 1/2 of 1% of the total allocation. So this number is based on this total allocation, so if anything changes, that number would change.
Okay. Debt service, this would be your debt principal as well as interest for the city. This includes not only our municipal bond, but also our referendum bond. Just city side, so schools separate. As we mentioned before, we put a placeholder in there based on the interest for FY '27, depending on what you would approve for the bond for FY '27.
The placeholder aligns with your FY '27 proposed bonding?
Yes. All right, page 18, fire department. We've already reviewed that with the fire chief. Move down. I believe you'll see police next. And then we'll jump to, we already covered IT department separately. Move down to rec department. Page 30. Within the rec, we also have I'm sorry, go ahead, Council.
Well, I was just, Donna, we asked you to kind of change the financing of the department. I was curious what your thoughts were, how things were going, and any observations or things you want us to know about.
So Donna Labonte, our Director of Rec, is with us. So I'll let Donna chime in, and then we'll also discuss a little bit more of that as well.
Yeah, so I think our main goal as a department was just to maintain what we were currently doing. And it took some time for staff to kind of understand the new budget and what that looks like. But I think we did a great job. We did a lot with a little, which is typically what our department does. I think the only change that we kind of had to figure out was the age-friendly component is getting a lot more partners to come in and run programs for that person that's no longer there, that position's that's not there, but that also helps build more partnerships, so those partners come to our free events that we host, or they'll sponsor something like a youth basketball team. So it was a good give and take. It's a lot to get used to just based on having that special revenues account and now having this budget. I think it's just changing the mindset of the staff. The only negative I found is in rec, you really want your creative juices flowing, and when you have to maintain the programs you have, sometimes the staff get a little discouraged that they can't try new things. So we have to come up with creative ways to try new programs that don't cost money. So it might be a sponsor coming and sponsoring a program. So that's been the only negative, is just not being able to do new things. But other than that, the staff did a really good job.
Just for a little background for Councilor Cowan's question, and for the new councilors and for the public, one thing that we did in the last year's budget was we moved all the special revenue accounts for all the different programs that Donna's referring to. That might be adult softball, adult basketball, as well as all of our youth programs, cheering, basketball, unified sports, soccer, lacrosse. We have a lot. And so each one of those had their own special revenue account. We moved all of that into the budget, and now we have a revenue offset for the funds that come in through the programming. I think the council gave a really good directive last year regarding, let's take a look and assess our fees for these different programs. What are we factoring in for full cost of facility use? We changed some of our rental costs for individuals that are coming in to use the facilities. We'll be tracking all that. Right now, we're just over halfway through, so we haven't even experienced some of our spring programs yet. And but so we carried over what we did last year into this year. But it's really going to take, after we complete this year, we're going to really need to do an assessment on, okay, how did we do with what we were projecting for costs? And then what was the revenue that we brought in for those programs? Where might we be lacking? Do we need to increase fees? Do we need to reduce what we're providing within that program? And then I think one thing that Donna and her team does a great job of is constantly evaluating how are we comparing with other, we don't want to oversaturate the community on a program that's might be provided outside of what the city's providing. So if there's someone else already filling that gap and there's no barriers for those individuals to be able to enroll in those programs, then our work is kind of done there, and we'll move on to other programs that we want to make sure we're reducing barriers so that youth can have access to these types of programs. So, PAL is also included within this line item, so we have what we have for our PAL staff that's assigned, as well as some of the programming costs for PAL. All right. No further questions?
I just want to thank you for taking the leadership and moving on this. This is a big change, so, and it sounds like overall it's a good process so far.
And the community understood. We hadn't increased prices in a long time. I think what really helped was having staff that were really passionate about that program, so they were able to kind of get everybody excited for it still. So.
I've got a couple questions.
For rec?
For rec
I'm
department.
sorry, yeah, go right ahead.
Through the years, we provide scholarships and ways for Auburn's kids to be able to go to summer camp, and we've allocated money in the past. Did we do that this year, or how are you handling it? So if a family is disadvantaged and can't afford their children to go, how are you going to allow them to go?
You bring up a really great point. We don't necessarily budget for summer camp. We get CDBG funding provided to us for Auburn residents. And due to the increase in costs in summer camp and years past not using the full amount that we were provided just because we didn't have enough applicants or they didn't qualify, we've actually ran out already this quarter. So we don't normally run out in March. We don't run out of funding in March, but due to the increase of cost and the amount of need, we did hit that capacity, and we don't have any funds left.
How many children were you able to service?
18.
18?
Mm-hmm.
We've done huge numbers more than that.
That's about average that actually qualify. We have a lot that apply, but due to the medians, they don't always qualify.
I'm not sure what's happening because we usually have more kids than that. So there's going to be more kids at home doing nothing on the streets while their parents, whether they're single parents or married parents, that the kids are going to be unattended and on the street.
Yeah.
And that's not right.
Yeah, and that's something that we are watching, and we'll provide any help that any person that walks into our doors needs. I will say that our current status of registrations for summer camp are steady. They're what they normally are in March. So I'm not super worried about that yet. We also do have the PAL Center that offers summer programming. So if that's also a need, and it's just there's barriers for people that come to summer camp, we can direct them there.
Just to
And
be
then-
clear, the
and then I got one
15
more.
is not the total number of people kids being served at summer camp.
No.
It's the number that CDBG is funding.
Yes. We
And-
have,
and-
we hit 200 kids today that have already signed up for camp, and
Right, and-
18 of them have been provided scholarships.
Yeah, and the numbers that are being provided scholarships, if I understood what you said earlier, is trending as it
Yeah.
has in past years.
Yeah, it is, we were provided 10,000, and we've, years prior, been provided 20, and we've averaged 13 to 15. So we did get provided less, but we were just told that based on where we were trending, they were going to only provide 10.
And then my next question is, how many seniors or rec vans do you have? And is it true that the lift-equipped van has been out of service for quite a while, well over a year?
We have 2 minibuses and a van, but the minibus that you're talking about, it hasn't been out of service for a year, but we have had issues with it.
Is it in your timeline to have the lift fixed so that anyone that's ADA compliant could go, go to the different things, whether they're a kid or a senior?
Yeah, as far as I know, the lift is not the problem. There were some gas engine issues. That's way beyond what I know about vehicles, but that's been the issue, not the actual lift. But I know that Public Works has used it. It's just not a vehicle that our staff uses yet, because we're just not comfortable with taking it on the road, not knowing for sure what's going to happen.
Thank you.
No further questions with Rick. We'll move on. I think we're going to move ahead because some of the other departments we've already discussed. County tax is another line item within, as you're looking through your sheet, but it's not within municipal operations, but that would cover it here. So our amount, even though I think we jumped to
Page 41.
the county had an increase of 13+%. However, because of the change that took place regarding valuations, regarding all towns and communities, so ours is landing at 9%. So that's where our line item increased. Not that it's great, but it's what we have to work with. Library is other items, so the library we receive the amount that's being requested by the city for library services. Donna Wallace, who's the director of the library, is here to answer any questions you have regarding the library's budget.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question. I guess I'd just like to hear from Donna as to what this year's budget means for your organization.
Sure. So what we asked for this year is a 3% increase, and all of that 3% we're hoping to put into staff salaries, wages. We're well under other libraries like ours in the state, so that was our hope with the 3% additional increase.
I wanted to make a comment. I know there's a few issues at hand that we've been discussing with the library. I don't know what's appropriate to bring up right now, but I will say one concern I do have with our funding of the library is that it's disproportionate to all other categories that we've funded. If you look back the last 3 years, I think we're 1.5% down on our funding of the library. I'm not sure that there's another department where we can say that. So I think it's worth noting. I know that every year we have to look at all of the departments. We have to make decisions. We have to spread cuts out equitably. But statistically speaking, I look at that. It gives me a little bit of concern.
I would just note, just so that we make sure we stay consistent. So the library is not a department of the city. I want to make sure everybody realizes that. There are, just because it was referencing departments, but just it is its own entity. Historically, obviously, the city has provided building as well as requests that have come in. We do try to keep it in alignment, but I didn't go back and look at previous years of where we are. But I think that we do get the request. We meet with the director annually to look at the budget request. And this isn't their only, this isn't their full budget. So this is the budget line item that's requested by the city, and then they have other items that they cover with other funds within the library that they receive. All right.
Councilor Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Even though we don't consider them a department, and what you had referenced was we give them partial money for their budget. And given that fact, we've asked all our other departments to make recommendations, and you've made recommendations where we can cut them, I mean, the city departments. Is it, well, it's feasible. I mean, I don't want to cut library services, but were they asked to make a similar cut based on what we've asked other departments to cut?
So,
Yeah.
so I think, to remind the council, the way that this is going to work is, this is more similar to the way that the school committee operates. The council does not review the line item budget. That's the purview of the Auburn Public Library Board of Trustees. They make a request for funds, and the city council may approve those or not. Regarding how this is going to work going forward with the library, it's going to be like every other department. Starting next week, as I explained at the last meeting, starting next week as we go through the departments, the city manager will be providing the differential between what currently stands as a 12.5% tax levy increase and the 7.5% benchmark that the council identified. That's round numbers, $4.2 million. That's being equitably distributed by the percentage of the general fund appropriations. And the question, as we start with each department, will be what's the impact of that cut? So we would expect this will affect almost every department. The only places it wouldn't affect is if they get no general fund money, and that will include the library and all the other departments that we've discussed.
All right. Moving on, you have in your sheet on page page 42, you have your tax share item. For those, just so you know, tax sharing is, there's an area around the airport that is part of the air park, and there was a local agreement with the city of Lewiston when that was developed, and part of that was that we would share the taxes that came in on that on that park with the city of Lewiston. That's $260,000 that then gets sent to the city of Lewiston as part of that interlocal agreement. That agreement sunsets in 2029, so we're coming up to ending that, I think 50-year agreement. So that's coming up to an end here soon. That's separate from the airport. That's not part of the airport. It's just an agreement that took place regarding the development of that air park outside of the airport.
A much smaller portion of that total is, there's a percentage of airport excise tax that the city collects, and that gets paid to the airport. So that's part of that tax share agreement, but that's the airport specific portion. It's very, I think it's $20,000 of the 260. Oh yeah, right there. There's you'll see an actual. There's 20,676. That's what gets paid out to the has been paid out so far to the airport.
Any questions on that?
This may not be the time for me to ask this question, but I don't understand why we fund the airport or why we have this airport. Can someone explain to me why we have it and what benefit it is to the city?
So, so I think perhaps the way to look at this is account 1053 and 1054. 1054 is the expense subsidy to the airport. So in general terms, the way this works is the cities are, Lewiston, Auburn, are co-equal partners in the airport. And the way the arrangement works is that the cities provide an operating subsidy equally to the airport, and that has come down over time. But the way the agreement works is that as long as the airport board of directors doesn't raise the fee, the cities are obligated to pay it. As it comes down, a new benchmark is set. And then, as the manager spoke about earlier, there is tax sharing that's going to sunset. I think in general sense, the airport is governed in large part by the FAA regulations. The cities cannot make a profit off the airports. If the airport doesn't make a profit now, because each city is providing around $200,000 in annual subsidy, if they increased revenue enough so that they were making an operating profit, it has to go back into the airport. So in large part, the cities have supported this from an economic development standpoint to get generalized economic development benefit for both cities.
So you have businesses within the Lewiston, Auburn, and the region that really, that is a need for what they have for businesses. So UPS is a perfect example. UPS operates out of the airport daily, sometimes multiple times during that day, as far as FedEx is another one that, so they're using this, as well as Procter & Gamble, as well as Walmart Distribution Center. As we have growth, economic growth within the community, there's a need for this air service, as well as a local, more regional use where we have flight schools, we have individuals that they have their fixed aircraft located there at the airport. They have the hangars, T hangars rather. All that brings in revenue to help offset the costs, as well as we have individuals that they will use this as an area to come in for refueling. So they may not have anything to do with the region, but they're coming in to refuel. That refueling, that cost for that refueling is a revenue for the airport, helps offset other costs. For new counselors that haven't spent some time up at the airport, really encourage you to, I spoke to Councilor Randall about this, about spending some time meeting with the director, covering, there's so many other elements to the airport that it's currently meeting different needs for, but that's just a small surface of what they provide.
I think long-term, Director Labonte has been moving towards trying to remove the subsidies. His goal is that Lewiston and Auburn will not pay the operating subsidies, that they would be self-sufficient.
Do we have a timeline for that? Because it sounds to me like the two cities are subsidizing for wealthy corporations and wealthy people, and we're telling other people that they have to cut their budgets.
Well, those wealthy corporations also help pay our tax base, and so there's a fine balance here, right? So it's about making sure we're providing that service and the resource for those entities, but also how do we keep, because a lot of those entities are also providing good paying jobs within the community. And so there's that element that we want to make sure that we are a community that has a good balance of our job force. So we just had a onboarding with new firefighters today. We have 6 new firefighters coming on board. As we were talking with them, and we had I had lunch with them today, bringing them on board, and we talked about the tax base for the city. We're really fortunate as a community to have, we're not just all residential, we're not just all commercial. We have a good balance, and that helps as the economy changes. We really need to make sure that we're keeping a good, healthy balance within the community, so that some of those other revenues that we receive help offset some of the costs for our residents. And so it's about a good balance there. It's not specifically regarding It's an airport that only the wealthy use. I think we have people that operate their businesses out of there. And so, and they pay for that. They're paying for their service there. They're covering that. I think that a few years ago, the airport was not managed well. We were having a lot of challenges at the airport. We've turned that around now where the airport is making that way. I think we have a master plan for the airport, and I think if you take a look at that, you'll see how there's years moving forward, and I can't give you the timeline because a lot of it has to do with what funding's available at the FAA that we can actually bring in to help offset some of these costs. But I think we're making good traction towards at least operating to be able to, as the mayor said, have that no longer be a subsidy for the community.
Yeah, I think you have to look at this from a competitive standpoint a little differently than some other operating businesses, because when you're in the air, it takes a very short amount of time to reach other airports in the region. So, you know, your point's well taken about, you know, there are some large businesses that use it. I think the airport tries to maximize the revenue that they can get while still being able to attract them. You know, we've attracted the flight schools out of Brunswick. They moved here. The director is working on some other plans to host other fixed-based operations out of the airport. So it's kind of a balancing act, but I think they've made a lot of progress over the last couple of years, and I think they're headed in the right trajectory to remove the operating subsidies in the future.
But happy to have more conversation there. I think it's an important topic. It's why as a community would we want it? What's the benefit to it? And what's the future of it? I think that's the other piece. So as we move on, I just want to make sure we're covering a couple other items with you that are in these line items for you. One is, as we talk about the TIF account. So we have TIF programming, and that TIF programming requires a certain amount that we bring in regarding taxes be allocated to the TIF account, so that $3,272,000. That's part of that transfer for the TIF account that gets transferred into the account that then pays out some of the items that we talked about. This includes credit enhancements, all the other categories regarding some of our projects and programs. I think we shared before about the benefit of this, being able to shelter some of those funds, why that's beneficial for us as a community, where the benefit offset is for those. And then lastly, I think you will have a public fire protection fee. So that is the water fee for all our fire hydrants. So there's a fixed fee for each fire hydrant we have in the city as far as a cost for fire protection. So that's the line item. Other than that, I think we've covered all the line items under general government and in the remaining categories except intergovernmental. So if there's no more questions for those here, we'll move on to intergovernmental. We have a couple intergovernmental representatives here. All right. Okay, this team can step out. I'd ask LA Arts and LA 911 to come up. Guys, all set? I think. Let the team. Okay. We'll start with LA 911. Tim Hall's the director of LA 911. This is, again, as we talked about other interlocal agencies. We share the cost for 911 with the city of Lewiston. 911 has a larger increase than some of what we would normally see in the past. I'll let Director Hall talk about kind of why that is, what's faced with, and then any questions you have for 911, Tim can answer those.
Tab 3 of your binder, the 911 request is the second bunch in. So it's airport, then 911.
Good evening, everybody. So as the city manager mentioned, I just wanted to touch on kind of the major budget drivers rather than going through each individual line in my budget, but I'll certainly answer any questions that I possibly can for you. The first driver for us is health insurance. So because we're an interlocal agency, all of our personnel benefits are carried in our departmental budget. And our health insurance, just for FY27, increased almost 19%. That is accounting for changes in employee coverage, whether they went from single to married, or whether they went from single and spouse to also having children on their policy. But it also represents the 9% premium increase from our provider. So health insurance costs alone in our budget are over $500,000 a year at this point. Radio maintenance and the warranty contract back in FY20, the cities jointly funded a capital improvement project to fully upgrade the public safety radio system. That includes the system within the 911 center itself, the radio towers throughout both cities, as well as all of the radios in the fire trucks, police cars, and that the individual responders carry. So this year, this is where this comes into play in our budget. This year, the maintenance and warranty contract begins now in our FY27 budget. That is $133,165 and change per year added to our budget. We knew this was coming, so over the previous few years' budgets, the 911 committee had allocated small amounts of money for a total of $60,000 to apply this year. So we're not realizing in our budget this year that full $133,000 hit, but we are still adding $73,000. The last big piece is the lease payments. So as you know, the public safety building will be taking the space on Minot Avenue. We are currently housed in the basement of that building. So before the wrecking ball hits it, we need to find another place to be. Throughout the last few years, we've been searching for space. We're actually slated to be moving here to Auburn City Hall up on the 3rd floor. To make way for us, the police department moved their CID division out of the 3rd floor and over to leased office space at 95 Main Street, with the agreement that 911 would carry that lease payment cost in our budget. That will remain until they move to the public safety building, so probably 3 years or so. Just those 3 items alone add up to $212,000, or just over 7% of the budget increase that we've presented. At this point, we have 1 vacant position. I've already frozen 2 positions in the FY27 budget. We currently have 1 vacancy. I haven't frozen it simply because if I freeze it, I have no overtime to pay to fill it. And it's a must-fill seat unless we start talking about which department do we not serve, which phone lines do we not answer.
So as the same directive that we've used with the departments was that there's no new programming in here. These were planned and fixed costs as a result of, for now one, some of it is circumstances that, they weren't in control of, but it was happening just on timing. So questions that you might have for the director?
Thank you. My question is regarding the increase, 13.2% increase. I understand why. But it also does look like from 25 to 26, there was also a large, looks like a double-digit percentage increase. My question is just simply, is that just the world we're living in now? Are we dealing with some one-offs? You did mention some things you've been planning for this year. Do you suspect that next year we're looking at double-digit increase as well?
I don't know if we're looking at a double digit, but it'll certainly be an increase again. We're entering year 3 of a 3-year contract, so 20 of our 25 positions are represented by a union. In the world of 911, wages have steadily increased over the last probably 5 years, I would say. And we've had to make some adjustments along the way. So back in 2023, early 2023, we were down 50% of our staff. We were close to not having 911, and that's not something you can deal without. So we've worked hard over the years, but that comes at a cost, of course. I know I am always monitoring 911 budgets around the state, other collective bargaining agreements that are going into place, anticipating that I've got one to work on for the next year, and wages have gone up significantly around us. So I have no doubt that's going to occur. Some of the issue that we run into is when we submit a budget request and either city requests that we reduce that amount's matched by the other city. So if Auburn comes to us and says, hey, we'd like you to bring that down $50,000, that's actually a $100,000 reduction. I have no place to reduce $100,000 in my budget other than personnel costs. So it's eliminating a position, and then of course the following year when I bring that position back, it's bumping the budget right back up again.
So a couple follow-ups on that. The recruitment issues for 911 operators are similar to what other public safety entities are facing, such as police and fire, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the 911 world, we've always had trouble recruiting and maintaining our staff. That's not just our agency, that's around the country. It is not a job that people last a long time in. Usually 3 to 5 years, somebody will burn out. I'm not sure what that says for me, but.
And can you speak a little bit to what the training time is from the time you hire somebody until they can actually sit in a seat by themselves and be a 911 operator?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first 2 weeks that we bring an employee in, it's kind of general orientation to our department and kind of the things that we do just on a very general basis, showing them some of the programs that we utilize. The next 4 weeks, they're sent away to the Emergency Services Communications Bureau at the state, where they spend classroom time over those 4 weeks, learning how to use the medical protocols, the fire protocols, how to navigate the 911 phone system, which is actually a computer. It's not a phone. It's pretty involved. That's a 2-day class just in and of itself to learn that system. They then come back to us again, and they are assigned to a field training dispatcher, and they will spend anywhere from 4 to 6 months with that training dispatcher to one degree or another before they're signed off. Typically, it's a good year after that before they're actually comfortable in performing their duties, where they're not asking their supervisor for input into the decisions that they're making. But it's a long process.
Yeah, Councilor Butler.
How often are you seeing turnover during that training period of time?
I would say typically what we find, and this is one of the reasons that we do that 2-week, we bring somebody in for 2 weeks before we even send them to the academy. We find most people, if they walk in the door and realize this is not for me, it's in those first 2 weeks. But we have lost a couple of people during the training process, but as of recent, we've been pretty successful with our training program.
Councilor Cowan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just looking at the overtime line, 412, second line of the budget, and just observing that since '24, it's gone down. You said that it has been an increase, certainly was higher than you had budgeted, but I guess I just would I'd ask you to speak to, here's the balance of, do you have a position versus you don't have a position, you're having a required overtime. So, you know, if you could maybe articulate a little bit more, you know, in terms of if cuts are requested and you have to reduce a person, just how much do we really gain from that cut?
Yeah,
Ballpark,
so
obviously.
our overtime line is essentially based on covering vacations, sick leave, floating holidays, and unanticipated things, funeral leave, that sort of thing. Our overtime account is essentially built upon that. So when you look at our budget, say for FY20, we go back all the way to FY25, we budgeted 176, and we actually spent 205 from the overtime budget. That's only based on that. Then we have our vacancies that we have to deal with. So if I've got a person that resigns today, it is more than likely that I will not fill that position until probably a year from now, by the time we get through the training or advertising for the position, the interviews, the training, getting them through all of that period. That's when they actually go on their own. So for the next year, I have to pay overtime to fill that spot. What I'm doing is I'm using that funding from our vacant position to pay that overtime that we didn't budget for.
And just to clarify that, at any given point in the day, there's a minimum number of operators that you need to service the 3 agencies that you cover, correct?
Yeah, so right now we're running a minimum of 4 people basically round the clock. When I started back in 2009 with this agency, we had 6 people here during the day and during the evening. We're running with 4 now. It's not because our call volume went down. So it is very extremely stressful on our folks, but they are running 4 people per shift, and that's the minimum that we need to handle our incoming call volume plus dispatching for the agencies that we serve.
Thank you.
Other questions on 911?
Thanks. So we'll move right over to LA Arts. So, Council, you had asked for what's our average, I believe it was, that we've allocated. You'll see what the city manager's request. We kept it as it was before. However, Kelsey went back and took a look at the previous years, and we averaged about 15,000 is what we had been providing. So that change, that change was added to that line item. But Jim's here, and I think Jim will give you a good overview of what LA Arts is doing, and certainly be able to answer any questions you have as it pertains to the city of Auburn, and also what they're doing in the region.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manager, for the invitation. I'm Jim Parakilis. I'm the board chair of LA Arts, which is the arts agency of the city of Auburn and the city of Lewiston. I'm grateful for the opportunity to present our budget request, which we have formed with the advice of Mayor Harmon. We had a terrific meeting with the mayor in the fall, and he proposed the format of our proposal. Have the members of the city council received our budget proposal?
Yes.
Good, thank you. So we provide a great range of arts experiences to the people of Auburn and Lewiston. And what we're proposing in this budget request is support for 4 programs which are specific to the people of Auburn, and they are all done in partnership with departments of the city. So one is a program for students in the schools of Auburn, and it is providing opportunities for art students to exhibit their work, but also to get the benefit of our professional staff in teaching them what it means to present art to the public, what it takes to put together an exhibit of their work. A second program that we have is an extension of something we've done for several years, which is for art workshops for senior citizens. This is done in conjunction with the rec department and is at the Senior Community Center. And it's increasingly obvious from many studies that arts making experiences are of unbelievable value to senior citizens. It gives them creative outlet, it gives them a sense of fulfillment, and it also draws them out of their isolation, if they are living in isolated situations, into a class activity. A third partnership that we're interested in is with your comprehensive plan, and we're interested in making sure that the arts are considered and are part of the plan, as particularly focused on the downtown in Auburn, and to think about arts venues and arts activities as something that work with your restaurants and hotel and other facilities as a form of economic development, and as a form of community development. And finally, and we're proposing also an inventory of arts venues in the city, so that presenters who want to put on performances or exhibit art or show films have a sense of where the opportunities are to do that. And we had a really interesting discussion with Mayor Harmon about making better use of the new Gay Performing Arts Center in Edward Little, and making it more of a community resource. And that led us to thinking about other facilities. That is an amazing facility. And there are other facilities, and people who are looking for places to put something on need to know, well, if that place is too big, what else is available? How do I get in touch with somebody? What does it cost to do something there? And we're proposing to do a survey of the possible facilities so that people, both within the city and from outside, who want to do something, want to have a performance, or more than a performance, maybe a conference, they can get a sense of what the facilities are that are available and on what terms. And finally, we're proposing a project in public art, and it's really important, we feel, for the development of the city, that public art not be scattered higgledy-piggledy according to somebody who has a wall that they want painted or think they can put some object somewhere, but just do a survey of the city and say, where would public art serve the needs of the city? So those are 4 programs. We have very modest costs for each of them, and so we are proposing that you take a look at these proposals and consider funding them along with some operating expenses. And finally, because I know that Dr. Ben Lounsbury spoke to you at your meeting last week and invited you to a showing, the arts are also a form of public service. And this is a film which is both funny and really serious about what can happen in sewer treatment plants. And we are showing that at LA Arts. But we have postponed the showing, and I want you to know because Dr. Lounsbury told you one date, and now we're postponing it 2 weeks. It will be on Friday, April 10th, still at 7 p.m. And we welcome you all to that.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Jim. Questions for LA Arts?
Just a comment. However this budget works out for Auburn, I just want to say of all the things you just mentioned, I'm extremely bullish on the Art for Seniors project. Everything you said makes perfect sense to me, and I think as someone who sits here thinking about our constituents, I think that a program like that has immeasurable value for constituents of our city. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councilor Cow.
I was going to echo that too. That program in particular is exciting to me, and as a public health professional, it's also, as you say, there's a health benefit to it. I also am intrigued and with the public art programming and your thoughtfulness in terms of trying to make this a coordinated effort and bring in the art into the city. So I appreciate all that you've put into this proposal. It's really well laid out and thought-provoking, and I wonder if there aren't opportunities for grants whether we might be able to work with you on to bring in some of these things. So it just seems like that could potentially be a money generator if we do some of this planning or surveying type of things.
So let me say to that we get a substantial part of our support from foundation grants, and we're busy pursuing those all the time. We also solicit sponsorships from local businesses. We solicit individuals to donate to LA Arts. Almost everything we do, we offer to the public without cost, including the programming for seniors. So we need to have a well-balanced source of revenue, and the two cities are a crucial part of that.
Other questions? No, thank you very much. We appreciate you hanging out until the very end.
I appreciate you all sitting here so late in the meeting.
Jim, it was just the order of where it is on the budget, so I just wasn't, no attack on you, just. So council, I'm sorry, Mayor.
Yeah, I was going to go on to the new items.
Perfect.
Yeah, okay, so there was some additional handouts that you received regarding outside requests. One wasn't in your packet, but the drop-in center, we previously covered that. Great Falls Youth Corp. The request here is for opioid settlement funds. We're going to deal here in April with the opioid settlement request separately. So that leaves us with Boys and Girls Clubs. In the past, the council last year allocated $10,000. That is not in the current manager's request because the request did not arrive in time to do that. So trying to understand, as we did with the other supplementals, the sense of the council about moving the $10,000 into the manager's proposed budget. Just like the other items, it doesn't mean it will or won't get funded. It just means it's in the discussion. Or like the other ones, if it's not moved in, they won't receive any funding. So any questions about Boys and Girls Club? If not, those that want to move it in?
I'll move.
Yeah. We don't need a motion. If you just raise your hands here if you want to move it in. Okay, so we'll add that.
Moving it into the supplemental list.
Yeah,
To
just
be
like the other ones.
deliberated.
We move it,
Yeah.
in effect, we're sort of going back a couple of weeks here, putting it on the supplemental list, moving it into the budget. It raises the overall tax levy like 0.02, but it'll be in the discussion as we go forward. So the other thing, I mentioned some of this earlier when the question from the library came up, but what's going to happen starting on the 30th is we'll start going through departments. In order for the council to have some sense of the impact of trying to get to the benchmark of 7.5%, as we deal with each department, the manager will present the dollars that are necessary in reduction from the current, where we are currently with the proposed budget to get to the 7.5%, what their share is. The manager is not recommending those cuts or not. He's just providing, in response to the council's direction, what that amount would be, and then he will provide some feedback to the council about the type of impact and programs and services that would be required in order to meet that target for each department. We'll have discussion about those as we go along. You know, this is like every year. The council may decide that they want to do what the recommendation is. They may decide they don't want to cut it as much. They want to cut it more. As we go through the departments and have those discussions, We'll keep track of the decisions, and we'll be able to update you as we go along, what impact you're having towards, you can look at it two ways, the 4.2 million necessary to get to 7.5, or we'll be able to tell you that and be able to tell you on a percentage basis, coming down from what's it now, 12.76, to get to 7.5. So that,
I also wanted to know, now that you have this, and you'll be looking into these departments, I've provided that expense munis report. I want to make a couple of notes on that report. It is a canned report from munis. So what that means is that, for example, that 2026 projection column that it has almost means nothing, because it's just taking a calculation that it's saying, oh, you've received this much, so we think you'll get this much. Well, it could be a cyclical activity, it could be a one-time, it could be we haven't received anything yet, but we will. So that projection column is only useful with certain things. So just keep that in mind if you're looking at that projection and it looks like, oh, we're going to far exceed our expense. Likely not. It's likely that that's something that got paid out already for the first half of the year and doesn't happen again. And the other piece is that similar with the 2026 actual, that is so far this year. So it could be something we don't receive until the end of the year, for example, or we've received parts of it and we'll continue to receive parts as we move along throughout the year. So those two columns, that 2026 actual and 2026 projection, they are there and they can be helpful tools. But if you have anything that you're trying to base decisions off of, I would ask that you bring those forward with questions so that I can tell you if that is a cyclical activity or if it is something that we are expecting to see a large difference in, just as you continue to work through these.
I would add on that FY26 actual, you'll see sometimes some of those, you'll see it's exceeding budget because there's a revenue offset. We might be carrying the full cost of the audit right now, but there'll be a portion of that that'll be transferred to the school department. So that would be brought down. So that's just one in particular. So as Kelsey said, it's really hard to take a look at those because there's money that's coming in and out of those accounts.
There's some reimbursements that aren't part of it yet, things like that.
questions about process going forward? Council Walker?
How much more paperwork will we receive?
Well, you'll get the detail on the CIP. We'll have to do, I think Kelsey was just talking about a revision on one of the documents. We'll do that for you. Well, actually, no, I'm sorry, Kelsey didn't. It's the change in the Boys and Girls Club. So that it changes each one of these documents. So so you'll get new documents at the next, on Monday, so that you'll have that to be able to continue. And I think Kelsey will do the same thing. She'll put the tab number. We'll try to make sure you know which one we're pulling out, which one we're putting in.
So the changes you'll see, for example, are, if we're adding in supplemental, that would change the council proposed budget, for example. So those first sheets in tab 2, you'll see that council proposed column. If a supplemental is added, you'll see that change in there. On the upper right-hand side of those worksheets, you'll also see the date that the workshop date that corresponds with those. So for example, those first pages of tab 2 say workshop 3/23/26. So if you're trying to kind of follow along, keep track of when you receive these budgets, you're trying to see changes and compare those, I will continue to put that date on there of the workshop date that you received those, or that those items were to be on the workshop agenda date.
Other questions?
Thank you for putting the date down.
Okay, I think if there's no other business, we'll be adjourned, and we'll start working on the budget in earnest next Monday night, 5:30.
Thanks, Mayor, Council.
No, I wouldn't. This is easy.